We'll lead our pledge, and good morning to everybody.
Let us pray. Gracious God, I thank you for this day. I thank you for our community. Pray your blessings upon this county, its people, and most especially this day upon its commissioners and staff as they meet. Thank you, Lord, for the dedicated staff that does so much work to make things happen and for their recognitions this day. Lord, give wisdom and be with us. For these things I pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reverend Hannon, thank you very much for being here. St. James Methodist Church, the big one downtown, and we appreciate you leading us this morning. Okay, the Board of County Commission meetings officially open Tuesday, August 9th, 2016. In front of us, Commissioners, we had the minutes from the July 26th meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move approval.
Motion on the floor, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, they carry. Thank you. Next, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Rick Leary, County Administrator.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask James Killamade to come forward, please, and join the chairman at the podium. James is a veterans counselor with Veterans Services. While James has been with the county a relatively short period of time, having started in February of 2015, he has been providing exemplary service to veterans in Putnam County, our nearly 10,000 veterans who are in the county and those who are returning from recent deployment. And we want to thank James for that service, and I'm sure the veterans want to thank him for the service he has rendered, and we want to congratulate you for being selected by a committee of your peers as the Employee of the Quarter for the quarter ended September 30th. So congratulations.
Very important work you do, especially right now. So we thank you very much, James, for that. And more importantly, this is a token of our appreciation to you, a little something that you might enjoy.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir.
All right. Thank you.
We're just starting.
The director is back there. It'd be nice if he was in that Kodak.
Richard Williams.
Richard.
Mr. Williams. Come on up, Mr. Williams. I think it's an iPhone moment.
You might be dating yourself a bit there.
The Polaroid.
Okay. Our tax collector's with us, Miss Linda Myers. If you could approach the podium. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, board members, honorable clerk, staff, and of course the folks that are with us today. I am here from the tax collector's office recognizing a long-term employee of Putnam County. So if we can invite Brenda Bridges to join me.
Yeah. Good morning, Brenda.
We're celebrating 15 years of service today of one of Putnam County residents who has been working and doing service for Putnam County citizens for 15 years as of August 15th. So that's this week. 2001, she began employment. She is currently operations director, was hired by Ken Mahaffey for that position, and it was a great snag, if you don't mind me saying, from the Planning and Development Department.
We want her back.
So let me tell you that August 15th of 2001, Brenda Bridges began serving the citizens of Putnam County in the Planning and Development Department while they're serving as various positions: Secretary to the Putnam County Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustment, served on the Development Review Committee as an office served as the Office and Customer Service Administrator, liaison to the Board of County Commissioners, then later Administrative Assistant to the Director, ending her career in development as the Zoning Administrator for Putnam County. October of 2004, selected as Employee of the Quarter under the BOCC's Employee Recognition, which we just saw again in action today. It's a great program to recognize great service. April 2012, received her bachelor's degree in public administration from Flagler College. June of 2012, began a career in the Putnam County Tax Collector's Office. July 1, 2014, received designation as a certified Florida collector assistant by the Florida Department of Revenue. April of 2016, earned the Six Sigma Advanced Yellow Belt certification from the Florida Sterling Council. And in June of this year, earned Managing for Excellence certification from the Florida Sterling Council. May I just add, as we close, Brenda loves her job, loves being part of our TC team, loves serving the citizens of Putnam County, and is extremely proud to call Putnam County her home. Please join our TC team as we congratulate and thank Brenda for 15 years of service to Putnam County. Oh, it's a close-up.
Brenda was with our Planning and Development Services unit here for quite a few of those years, and you did an outstanding job here, and we do miss you very much here. But thank you for continuing your service with the county, and we wish you luck in the future.
And if you would, Mr. Chairman, indulge me for a moment to introduce other staff members that are here. With the Tax Collector's Office, please stand. They'll only be here for a few minutes because it's a busy day, but they have been working with Brenda. Please stand so folks recognize these. Again, all are your neighbors here in Putnam County and work hard for you as citizens.
And Mrs. Myers, I want to give a shout out to them. That department, I go in there myself, and it is very efficient and running like a clock, as they say. Thank
They
you
can
all.
handle our chairman. They can really handle all the rest of us.
It was, I mean, really, there's no wait, and you guys do a great job.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much. Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would just say that our office has on item F, item E on the consent agenda. So we're here in case you have questions on that. I don't think so. This is a routine operation. But I did want to add one thing to credit the tax collector team, your team. If you're familiar, and all of you have been here long enough to have seen the TPP write-offs, in the year 2013, the total write-offs were $51,968. In the year 2013, they were $617. In the year 2014, they were $635. I want to credit to the Tax Administration Office under the leadership of a brand new supervisor, Rose Wilkinson. She took this to task and has changed our whole procedure on how we handle the TPP, which is the tangible personal property of businesses, generally speaking. Some mobile homes have some TPP on them, but in general, that's a business tax on the assets.
Give a brief description of what the tangibles are.
Tangibles are anything in your business that has a life. We need the property appraiser here to define this completely because they define it, but in general, it's all of your assets that have a life longer than 1 year. There are some other small caveats, but the bulk of the tangible is your assets. So, for example, a lot of our major corporations have huge assets, Seminole Electric, Georgia Pacific, but even your desk at your local professional office, but in Dunkin' Donuts, the value there was our tangible property, not so much the real estate. We had a lot of equipment. So in general, it's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And under Rose Wilkinson with a group...
Whoa.
I'm sorry.
If y'all keep it down in the
So,
audience, please.
I didn't know if there was a question, but so I just say that to say that Rose Wilkinson and her crew took a totally different tangent. They started calling businesses and individuals who were on there for their first time and saying, I'm not sure you're aware, but you didn't pay your taxes this year. We spent about 3 months, and she's been doing this for 3 years now, calling them individually and noting that we've called them because sometimes they don't pay it still, and they say, well, no one called me. So she has done a great job, and I wanted to let you know, if you've seen that change of write-offs, which is very good for our county, those taxes are being collected now and not written off. So with that, I will leave you, but I'll be here in case there's questions on it. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay. Next, we have public comment. I have no blue cards this morning, but anybody wishing to comment, please come forward at this time. Good morning, Mr. Spells.
Morning. Good morning. I'm kind of upset. I ain't no use of me saying my address because I received a letter from the county about the property on Moody, and it's kind of strange. I noticed that y'all always mention professionals in here, but I'm just kind of, puzzled on why did the letter go out to Hollister on Hunter Road when I stay in East Palaca. So that term of saying professionals, I think y'all need to use other words from here on out. But my next thing is, I'm just kind of puzzled also on what is the purpose of widening Moody Road and putting a sidewalk there?
This is, I'll answer your question, but remember the 3 minutes is for your
Go ahead and say it
comments.
instead of going through all of
Public
that.
safety, sir. We have a lot of pedestrians that travel to Walmart for shopping from the residential areas, and it's for public safety.
All right, well, Binks, you said it like that, I don't even believe it, because number one, I'm kind of thinking that, one of the commissioners have property in that area. It's kind of strange that, you want to do all that paving and seem like everything surrounding his area. I won't call no name, but, what really bothers me, you got the gall to say public safety, but it's been over 7 months. I've been mentioning about Lewisbriar Road, and yet have no one went and put something in those potholes along the edge of that sidewalk, but then you're going to be hypocrites and holler about public safety. But at the last meeting, I mentioned about Lewisbriar Road, and 4 days later, you was out there at GP down there where those semis parked along the road with the grader, dump truck spreading dirt. So how many hypocrites we going to have in this here?
Well, I think if you would coordinate or
Listen,
question with Public Works Department, you would have more of an idea what our schedule is.
Well, it ain't the point. I've been talking about this for over 7 months. Now, you going to holler about public safety. Now, if someone step off the edge of that sidewalk and break a leg, every one of y'all going to be, held accountable because I've been coming in here. I know several people that done called in about the ditches, the bushes and debris growing up in front of their places. And I was trying to get him to come here, and he said nobody has made it yet. They done been all out on Federal Point with that new boom mower, cutting down trees that big, but now they out in Barden mowing, so it ain't no use calling in. I figured if I come in here and talk, maybe the citizens can see what I'm talking about, ride these areas, and come voting time, kind of eliminate a bunch of these here commissioners that all we got is on the buddy system. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
All right. Next, public comment. Anybody from the public? All right. Seeing none, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Commissioners, anything on the consent agenda wishing to pull this morning?
I have nothing. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk about H and J real quick.
Which one?
Item H and item J.
Okay. H and J to my left.
None.
None.
Okay. Let's pull H and J. We'll take just a minute. Okay, Mr. Harvey, the floor is yours. Let's
Thank you,
start
Mr.
with H, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just really want to give a shout out to our Public Works Department. It's good to see some of these roads, Beecher Springs Road that's falling apart. Barden Road is finally going to see some attention on that. And I just wanted to say thank you to our Public Works for bringing these up. And these roads are desperately needed. Barden Road needs a lot more, as you well know, but they'll be happy with that. I would ask you, though, if you would, look at, if you could, widen it just a little bit on the shoulders there. That seems to be the really worst part from State Road 100 into the Midway Baptist Church area, actually all the way to Bud's Grocery, if you will. It gets kind of harried through there. But I just want to give them a shout out and say thank you for these roads. They're in dire need of help, and it's a pleasure to see them on.
While we're on the subject, Mr. Tompkins, can you come to the podium for just a moment? Please, sir. Thank you. Of course, Commissioner Palliser and I share Barden Road, and we've been after this project, and we feel the same as Commissioner Harvey. But one thing I want to ask you, of course, there's different grades of asphalt.
Yes, sir.
What are we going to put there? Especially at the end where the log trucks put on brakes, and that's the area that really is disturbed the most. Do you
Well,
have any
what-
plans for that?
Well, we've looked at that. We've looked at the loading on the road, and we're putting down a type of friction course that should be able to withstand the truck traffic. And we are looking at trying to hopefully gain about another foot on that road if we can, but this was the basic resurfacing contract. So we're doing what we can to try to increase the safety on these roads and make sure we have adequate asphalt design for them.
That sounds good. I was here when we resurfaced it before, and it just didn't hold up.
Right.
In no time, it was back to the condition that we're experiencing right now. Okay, any other questions?
Mr.
Go ahead.
Tompkins, just a brief, any idea of a starting and a window, picture window on time?
It should be as soon as we can get the contract signed. Usually I'm saying they'll be out there probably within 30 days.
And start on some portion of this
Yes,
list until,
right.
and go till
They'll
they're
try
done?
to hit areas that are close to each other, then they'll hit
Right.
another area. But we've got 14 roads that we're doing throughout the county, so
Mm-hmm.
they'll try to mobilize the best they can to take advantage of that.
Very good.
Yep, thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Tompkins. Okay, Larry, the floor is still yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item J is the MSBU rate resolution. A few months back, Shannon and myself, we had a town hall meeting. I think Commissioner Palliser had one over in his section on an MSBU there at the high school. I went out and knocked on doors in the community. This is, the one I'm talking about is in Larkin Lake Estates, ILE North, which is north of Fowler out there. Currently, the price of that is just not being able to sustain the work that's being needed in that area. So we met with the citizens and we agreed that a rate increase could happen. Unfortunately, it didn't make it on this list of the new rate increase. And not that we want to raise rates, but we're cutting services in half out there in that area. And if prices continue to go up, we're going to have to cut services even more. And that concerns me, but we'll deal with that another time. I just wanted to be on the record to say that we did have a town hall meeting. The people did agree for it to go up. It didn't make it to this, but we'll do it again next time and try to get the services back up. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I so
Mr.
move
Flagg.
approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, with motion
Second.
on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, it carries. All right. Thank you, Commissioners. We have Supervisor of Elections for item number 7 on our agenda today, Mr. Charles Overturf. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners, staff, and citizens. Apologize for not necessarily having a PowerPoint. We tried it and it just didn't work, but I do have a few copies if anybody in the public wants to see. I think you all have in your packets the maps, and that's what we're going to discuss this morning. Just wanted to update you on redistricting. I know most of you have been aware that for the last 3 years, Putnam County's sort of been in the middle of the redistricting issue. And a little bit of brief history. If you look at map number 1, which is the 2012 congressional districts, this district was created back in 1991. The U.S. Supreme Court said that they agreed that districts could be created to try to include and encourage minority representation in Washington. And so in 1992, we had an election here in Putnam County and throughout that district. And of course, Congressman Corrine Brown was the winner of that district. And that district has pretty well stayed this way for the past almost 25 years. If you look at the map, it's one of the most famous districts in all of the United States and probably in the world, because it starts, as you can tell, up on the Nassau County border. It comes through the middle of Jacksonville, comes through a teeny bit of Clay County, came to Putnam County. It sort of splits us, but it includes Palatka, goes all the way to Gainesville, includes Gainesville, and then goes all the way down, including Sanford and parts of Orlando. And the other part of that district is Congressional District 6. It's in the green in your map, and that shows the St. John's, Flagler, Volusia, and part of Putnam. And that's the way it's been for several years, but this was the 2012, and I wanted to show you what that was. If you look at map number 2, it distinguishes Putnam County and how it was divided up. And as you can see in the pink there, Bostwick area, Georges Lake, Putnam Hall, all of that was Congressional District 5, including downtown Palatka. And then in the light green, you see that Congressional 6. And of course, in 2012, Ron DeSantis was the winner of that election, and he has represented our county the part that he has. And as you see, it goes the southern part of our county and also all the way out through Interlaken to Johnson to the Alachua County border. So that's where we stood as of the last couple of years. In 2013, the League of Women Voters took this district to court, and they had a hearing early in 14. And that hearing was based on the idea that you all as voters in 2010 passed an amendment called the Fair District Amendment that said we would no longer create districts in the legislature for the purpose of protecting an incumbent or a political party. And so because that passed overwhelmingly throughout the state of Florida, they believed that this particular district did not meet those criteria. So they took it to court. And early in 14, a circuit judge there in Tallahassee ruled and agreed with them that they would have a trial, and he would pursue it further. He did have that trial, and to the amazement of many of the lawyers in Tallahassee, he agreed with the League of Women Voters that it was unconstitutional and that the legislature needed to go back and redraw that district. So if you remember a couple of years ago, they did have a special session. They tweaked it a little bit. They took Sanford out of this district. They took away Ron DeSantis' part of Putnam County, most of it from Palatka westward through Alachua County there, and put that in Congressman Brown's district. Unfortunately, the League of Women Voters said that they did not agree with that. They appealed back to the judge. The judge agreed with them and told the legislature they had not done enough to make it constitutional. Our problem then was in 2014 was that we were so close to the August elections, because this was in June, that we did not have time to let the legislature meet again. So they allowed those districts to continue even though they were ruled unconstitutional, and we had elections, promising the public that we would have everything corrected, or they would, by 2016. Well, I'll fast forward real quick because we're in 2016 and we were still, just a few weeks ago, still having to debate this. They went back, and because the legislature met last year, and I think most of you remember that, they met in 2 different sessions. The first one in the summer last year was dealing with this specific district and trying to come up with a brand new map. And unfortunately, the 2 legislative branches could not get together, and they threw their hands up and walked out, and ended up the judge in Tallahassee drew these districts. If you look at the 3rd map, this is the district, and it says 2016.
Charles, show us which map you're looking at.
I'm sorry, 2016 Congressional District 3. And that was the map that the judge approved and sent it to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court agreed to it. Early in this year, Congresswoman Brown did not agree with this, because instead of going north and south from Jacksonville to Orlando, this new district that the state created would push her from Jacksonville through Tallahassee all the way to Quincy and Gadsden County. And so she appealed to the District Court of Appeals, Federal District Court. About April or so of this year, they ruled against her 3-0, that they agreed that this district that had been created would be more applicable to the law. That didn't stop her. She did decide to go to the U.S. Supreme Court in early June or late May, and left that appeal there for about a month. And then finally, about 5 weeks ago now, she announced that she was going to run for re-election in her new district and would drop this appeal. So this map became official as of about 5 weeks ago. As you can see,
Let me stop you there just for a moment.
Yes, sir.
Can that appellate court hear that again? Could she raise it again to the Supreme Court?
The only way that she could take it to the U.S. Supreme Court was because the Federal Appeals Court had heard it And that was, she only has one direction, and that was to the U.S. Supreme Court. So because she has dropped that now, I think it's a dead issue as far as that's concerned.
Finally settled in.
Exactly. So after several years, we are complete. I wanted to call your attention to this map, and if you look at it, it puts Putnam County whole. The whole county is now represented by one congressman. It also includes all of Clay County, all of Bradford, all of Union, all of Alachua, and then if you notice, it's the northern part of Marion County, and it goes just south of Ocala. And so this is Congressional District 3. The representative that we have as of this moment is Ted Yoho. He is from the Alachua area. He does have some ties, and I'm sure many of you have met him already, to Putnam County, because he has I guess you'd call it a weekend place whenever a congressman can get away down in Willaca. So we do have his ties here as far as Putnam County is concerned. As you can tell with several other counties, of course, our 47,000 roughly voters, we're probably not going to ever elect a congressman from our district, our county by ourselves, but we sure will have an impact, I believe, in stating who's going to be the next congressman from this area. All of us as Putnam County voters will get to vote on that in November. Congressman Yoho is running for re-election. Also, the Democratic candidate is Ken McGurn. He's also from Alachua County. And there is also a nonpartisan candidate, Tom Wells, from, I think, Alachua County also. So that is complete. I'm glad to say our county is whole again for the first time in many years.
What you're saying in layman's terms, that most likely in any congressional district race in this district, Putnam County will decide who the winner is because we are left whole.
Well,
is that fair to say?
Not necessarily, because see, you got all of Clay County, and they've got way more voters than we do. You've got Alachua County. What I'm saying is, if we voted together as if we get behind one candidate, we could sure influence that race, because some of those counties are going to switch. Some are going to vote Democrat, some are going to vote Republican, and so we're sort of that toss-up.
Well, the point being, we'll get a lot of attention.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that's definite. But anyway, so that concludes the congressional part of it, District 3. Now, if you will turn to the map, because it also affected our state Senate seat, and that's 2012 Florida Senate District 6. This was what we had as of after the last the 2010 census.
What map is that, Charles?
The 2012 Florida Senate District 6.
Oh, I think it's in the beginning.
And again, that shows what Putnam County was in. It was all of Putnam County. It was all of St. Johns County. It's all of Flagler. And it was the northeastern part of Volusia County. And again, going back in time a little bit, if most of you remember, the candidate that won that race in 2012 was John Thrasher. And he served, again, because he was an even-numbered district. They make all the senators, if you're an even district, you have to run 2 years later to get a 4-year term. The ones that are in odd districts automatically get the 4-year term. So if you'll remember, in 2014, we had the election for State Senate District 6. And if you remember again, Senator Thrasher won that seat and then 5 days later resigned to go to be the president at Florida State University. That created last year 2 different special elections in January and then again in April. And Travis Hudson, most of you remember, was elected as our state senator. In the meantime, of course, the League of Women Voters had taken this district, the Florida Senate's maps to court also. And again, instead of the Florida Senate going through a trial that they knew they would lose because they'd already lost in the House situation, their congressional, they agreed to redraw districts. And so in October, November of last year, again, they had special session. And again, nobody could agree to it, and so they dismissed without ever drawing a map. So again, it was left to the judges to decide. If you look at 2016 Florida Senate District 8 map, which should be the next to the last one there, that is the map that the judge came up with, and the state Supreme Court agreed to this. As you see, it puts Putnam County again all in one county. It puts Alachua County all in one county, and again, it takes that northern part of Marion County, including the city of Ocala. It looks a lot like the congressional map, except most of you know congressional, there's about 700,000 people in a congressional seat. There's about 400,000 roughly in a Senate seat and about 100,000 in a state House seat. So that's why it's smaller, but they did keep that same configuration. So they moved us out of District 6, moved us westward, and put us in District 8. One of the ironic things about this particular map is there is no incumbent that was in this district. It's very unusual. Usually there's always somebody that they're trying to help or protect. The closest incumbent in this district is Senator Baxley from just south of Ocala, and he lives toward Bellevue. And as you can see, that incorporates a different district. So there is no incumbent in that district. So we will have an election in November between two candidates, and I think most all of us know both of these candidates, Rod Smith, the Democrat, and Keith Perry, the Republican. So Putnam County, again, will have a say-so about who that Senate seat will go to. So this has all been approved. The Senate did not appeal this decision. So again, this concludes the redistricting as far as the Senate seat is concerned. I will make a comment before we go to the last part, and that is the Putnam County, how it affects us. For the first time in my memory, I don't know, maybe some of you all remember it, but this first time that I can think of that our Congress seat is all Putnam County, our Senate seat is all Putnam County, and our House seat is all Putnam County. It's at least 30 years, I'm going to say longer than that, and it may never have been because we always sort of been the county that got split up a little bit. So we'll have this for 4 years, and then it could change because in 2020 we do the census again, and the very next year we'll start redistricting again for the whole state. So this could easily change, so we better enjoy it while we've got it, and maybe we can make an influence that in Tallahassee that we can maybe keep it that way.
Legislative agenda ready
exactly,
to go, Mr.
Exactly.
O'Church.
So, okay, that gets us to what I wanted to mention today, and that is the how it changed, affected you all as commissioners. The first thing I'll tell you is we did not change any precinct lines whatsoever. So you're where you are today is where you were yesterday as far as precinct lines are concerned. The one thing that we did do that we believe would be helpful to the voters of Putnam County is we combined 4 of our precincts. And I'll tell you why we did that. If you look at the last map here, which says Florida, Putnam County, Florida 2016 precinct combinations, and I've got them listed up at the top, and I'll just briefly go through those. I'll start out in North Putnam County up near Bostwick. As you see in the green there, Precinct 13 and Precinct 12. And you see that big red line that was drawn through. That line was because when we were two congressional seats, you cannot cross, a county precinct cannot cross a congressional line by federal law. So we had to, years ago, they had to create those 2 precincts, even though they all voted the same place. But because Ron DeSantis represented part of them and Corrine Brown represented the other, that's why that was. Now that we're all whole, we have combined those 2. We've gotten rid of 13, so it's all 12, and they all voted the exact same place they did before. It's just that there's 1 precinct now instead of 2. So that was one of them. The second one is if you go to West Putnam, out in the Grandin, Putnam Hall, Georges Lake area, you again see Precinct 16 is a really big one as far as the size of that and also the numbers. And then you see the small 17. And again, you see that red line, and that red line was the distinguishing factor between the 2 congressional representatives. And so we were able, again, to combine those. And oh, by the way, I will tell you that in Precinct 17, there was only 17 voters total. So you think about that, and that's different parties and stuff, and some voting early and some not voting at all and all. So it gives privacy to these voters. They are now included in 16, so it puts them in with a big group. So there's no way anybody could find out how they voted as far as that's concerned. So we think that was a good move there. The third and the fourth one are both here in Palatka. Again, I'll go to 31 and 32. 31 was out by the barge port. 32 is more the northeastern part of Palatka. And 31, there was only 9 voters. And again, that was created because of the congressional. So we combined those 9 into 32. And so that way they're, again, have a lot more privacy as far as the way they voted. We did move that precinct as far as voting because it made more sense. Instead of the college where we had 4, we reduced it to 3 there to lessen their load a little bit, and we moved them to Price Martin Center, which is really closer for most of those where the people live. And then the last one we moved was precincts 28 and 29. That one was strictly a house cleaning measure. They were so close together, we said, why don't we do this now and incorporate that? So we combined those, and they're all in 28. So we did most of this because of redistricting and to clean up some things. We moved a couple of precincts as far as where they're voting, one from Edgar Johnson down to the Women's Club, because a lot of those people drove by to go to the Edgar Johnson Center, and a lot of them have all called and thanked us for doing that. So a couple of minor changes like that. But the main thing is we combined the four and did it mainly to allow the privacy of the voters, to make sure that we can keep their votes private, and also to help us as far as the county is concerned. I did talk with Mr. Manning, and he will have some direction for you about what he would recommend as far as how you need to proceed on that.
28 and 29 is Sunny Heights and
Right.
and Southside Baptist.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Manning.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I was looking at this and kind of looked at it and went back and looked at it again, went back and looked at it again. We've got a statute, a state statute, 101.001, that requires that when if there's a change in precinct, that requires consent of a majority vote of the board. And like I said, I was kind of going back and forth. Is this really a change in precincts? But because we're not really changing lines, but to be on the cautious side, since we are combining some of these precincts, I would advise that you all go ahead and make a motion and vote to either approve or not approve the combination of those four precincts.
So move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. What if we had voted that down? Really?
Charles, you have to go back to the way it was.
What's
I
that done
guess.
for you?
Created a disaster because we're so close to the election.
Anybody mad at Charles?
We could have some fun with you, Mr. Overturn.
Yeah. Any other questions? I hope it was explanatory, and I
It
hope
was
the
good.
public
Very
understood
well.
it. Like I said,
It's been a roller coaster, to
it has,
say the
but
least.
thank goodness
And,
we're finished with that at least for 4 years, and then we'll start all of this again.
And I said, we're going to have a very strong legislative agenda to
Good.
go to Tallahassee with, because the stars are truly aligned right now.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, just to spin off of what you said, I think it's, I don't ever remember, as you said, all of Putnam being together and everything.
Right.
And I think it truly unites us better as a one voice. And I think we're on, it may be only for 4 years, but I think we're going to see some great things happen for us in our county.
We think it just affected a few districts, but really, when you affect one district, you affect everything beside it. And I can tell you, my friends in Marion County went from 1 to 3, and you talking about a nightmare. They've had to go through the whole redistricting process, including you all's position, that kind of thing. So there were several counties that it affected way more than us. So us being brought together was a lot simpler than it would have been to split us up, and that's.
Charles, do you know the population of the city of Ocala?
Not right offhand, I don't. It's about 200 and something for the county, I think. They were way up there as far as compared to us, but I don't know 300,000, is it? Okay. So I'm not sure about the city of Ocala
That's all right.
itself, but
Inquisitive. Appreciate it.
yes, sir. Thank you all.
sir. Thank you. Okay, Code Enforcement, Mr. John Sammons. Good morning, sir. Commissioners, page 55 in your packet. First case, page 60.
First case is a fine reduction case. Case 2015-0178, 103 Bartlett Drive in Satsuma, Amy Jones. Basically, this is a burned-out mobile home. A single mom with kids went through a whole process and hired a contractor that didn't perform. Eventually it got resolved, and as both staff and the special magistrate recommended that the $2,975 fine plus $100 administrative fee be reduced to the $100 administrative fee if it's paid within 30 days. Most of what happened was not under her direct ability.
No, and I'd like
deal
to
with.
commend you and staff for working with this case. It really is one that warrants it. Thank you. Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have the conversation, if you don't mind. I know we don't often do this, and I think in my tenure we've only done it once. But I read this over and over Sunday, and I would like to see us drop that fine to nothing. It clearly, this lady did the best she could. She tried to make it happen. $100 is not going to break the county, and I would like to see us go to zero on that administration fee.
Is that in form of a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve recommended staff action with the fine being 0 instead of 100.
Commissioners?
Question. I guess this question is for the director. Does that set any precedent, or does that create any domino effect for the future? I would almost appreciate a person being a good Samaritan and paying that fee to help the person out than for us to create a situation that's going to backfire later. Just a question. That's all I have as a question.
As far as we're concerned, it does not. These liens are yours. They are not ours. So, I mean, we just
Thank
make
you.
recommendations, and the board can dispose of them as they see fit.
Second.
All right, we have a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, Mr. Harvey.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. The second case is 2014-0418, 359 Hickory Nut Trail in Satsuma. Curtis Webb is the owner. Once again, there was an unpermitted remodel and care premises that he purchased kind of in the middle of the process. He hired contractors to bring the property into compliance. The $13,150 fine plus $100 administrative fee, staff and the special magistrate recommended be reduced to $457 if it's paid within 60 days.
Mr. Chairman, is there anyone present on this?
We have anybody representing this property with us today? Mr. Salmon, do you recognize anybody?
I don't. He was out of town. He's been out of town. I think he's working out of town, and he called me after the special magistrate meeting and seemed content with what we
So moved.
recommended. And
Motion on the floor.
Second.
And second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries. Thank you.
the third case is a abatement request. This is a property located at 312 Wilson Drive in Interlochen. The photographs will give you a pretty good idea of why we want to tear it down. It's very close to the house next door. This has been an ongoing process since 2009. We've been to the special magistrate several times, and we're requesting the ability
Motion on
to
the
go
floor.
ahead and abate it.
Second. Further discussion? Anybody representing this property here today?
Carl,
What, you did?
she wanted to know who made the motion. Commissioner.
Carl. He's
So
quiet today.
moved.
Thank you. That's more like you. All right. We had a second by who? Commissioner Palliser. You good, Tony? All right. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have a hearing that's time certain, 10 o'clock. We're going to go in recess until that time. We will reconvene at 10 o'clock.
120.
Meeting. We're going to start with agenda item 16-001, rezoning PUD to PUD amendment, Magnolia Dunes LLC. It is going to be a hearing, and I do have speakers here that will call you up at appropriate times. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could just remind that since this is a quasi-judicial matter, that any ex parte communications would need to be disclosed.
On my left?
No, I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I have had.
I have none.
Okay. You good, Mr. Manning?
Did I hear a have? Well,
Yes.
could you
Commissioner Pellis.
go into the extent of it
I
for the
think
record?
it's those people sitting in that row right there.
All
I
right.
believe. It's not Mr. Alford or any of those folks.
Okay.
I apologize. I thought you were talking about Mr. Alford. I have spoken to the Locks myself also. So.
Okay. Since they are not a party, we don't need to go into it further.
Okay.
Okay, who's representing? Mike Brown, I see you there. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Not used to that podium to the right yet.
Good morning, Commissioner and Commission. Mike Brown, Putnam County Planning and Development Services. The application before you today is an amendment to the existing planned unit development by Magnolia Dunes LLC, represented agent Phil Leary, and the request is to amend various portions of Section 2, the allowed uses and conditions, as set forth in the PUD. Just a brief background. In 2008, the county originally approved 92 plus acres to a PUD for a commercially operated mud bogging facility known as Hogwaller Mud Bogging. That approval included 7.5 acres for mud bogging activities and 80 acres for ATV riding. In 2009, the county approved an amendment to the PUD, adding 549 acres, expanding the ATV riding area, allowing camping, and approval for the development of a bathhouse facility. In 2014, the county approved an amendment to the PUD to add an additional 365 acres, again expanding the ATV riding area, allowing for airboat racing area, and specifically including 15 designated RV sites, 8 cottages, and 16 tent camping sites on the property. Quickly, the future land use is agriculture 2, surrounded by Ag 2 land use and conservation land uses. Zoning, again, is PUD, surrounded by agriculture zoning. The proposed changes as submitted by the applicant, go over them with a quick summary. The biggest change, well, one of the big changes is to allow camping year-round at this facility, designating it on a little over 26 acres within the existing 1,000-acre site. The year-round camping would allow for 15 designated RV sites, which are allowed in the existing PUD, 125 campsites, which would allow on those sites, you could do tent camping, truck campers, motorhomes, travel trailers, camping trailers, and self-contained RVs. And the 8 cabins and cottages, which are allowed within the existing PUD. The proposed change would also allow ATV riding, or ATV and UTV riding, daily associated with the expansion in the camping. And that ATV riding would be allowed from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. throughout the year. The change also sets forth and designate a maximum of 24 events per calendar year. And an event would allow, or would extend from 8 p.m. on Friday through 8 p.m. on Sunday. And during an event, mud bogging would be allowed from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. Airboat racing allowed from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. And ATV riding would be allowed 24 hours a day, starting at 8 p.m. on Friday and through 8 p.m. on Sunday. The extent, and those lists of uses would only happen during those events. So you just, the mud bogging, airboat racing would not be allowed outside of the events, and the ATV riding 24 hours a day would not be allowed outside of the events, but only happen during the events.
Could you say that again?
Yeah, during the events, you can do the ATV riding 24 hours a day. Outside of the events, you could do ATV riding from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. There are 24 events which are run 24 hours a day, are run from 8 p.m. on Friday to 8 p.m. on Sunday. That's the definition of an event. During the event, or during those events, you can do the mud bogging, the airboat racing, and the 24-hour-a-day ATV riding.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Commissioner.
Chairman, thank you. You have in our packet the ATV and the UTV.
Right.
But on here,
ATV,
you're listing
UTV.
only ATV on there.
No,
It's both.
I'm using, my fault, I'm using the ATV as a universal term. It's ATV and UTV.
Okay. And I was understanding by reading my packet that ATV, UTV would happen 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
No.
That's not correct.
No, it's 24 hours a day only during the events. Those 24 events, that would be the only time it can happen. Outside of the events, you can have ATV riding could happen every day of the year. But outside of the events, they would be limited from 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. at night.
So an event starts, the gates open at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, close at 8 o'clock on Sunday.
Right, for the event.
For the event. ATVs can go
24 hours a day
24
during
hours
the
a day
event.
during that time. The other days of the week, they can only go from
8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
But there could be confusion on the mud bogging has set hours in the event times. What are they, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, the mud bogging during the events, which would be allowed from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday.
And they're also contained to their geographical areas by fence lines.
Right. Well, yeah, they are limited to that 7.5 acres that are set forth.
Nobody can come to the airboat race in the airboat down 310.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know that's a little confusing, but wanted to make sure everybody was clear.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I could also clarify, if you look at page 110 of your packet, sub 13, or paragraph 13 on that page, it defines when the ATV, UTV riding is allowed, but there is also an exception in there for a maximum 5-mile-an-hour speed for riding between the camp areas and the bathhouse when it's beyond the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. time frame during the non-event periods.
I think it was worded as transportation only.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Okay. Questions? No?
All right. In addition, all the pursuant to paragraph 302 or 3.02.337A of the Land Development Code, vehicle sound level standards will have to be met, and the amplified sound ordinance will also have to be complied with. There is one exception to this. Those vehicles that are directly involved in the mud bogging activity do not have to meet the vehicle sound levels standards set forth in the Land Development Code. The reason before that is set interior to the project site. Also, it is done down in a pit below the grade elevation, which contains a lot of the sound, and we felt it was just staff felt it was appropriate to exempt those vehicles from those vehicle sound standards. Everything else would have to meet the vehicle sound standards set forth in the Land Development Code. There is also a changing to the buffering requirements where if the applicant chooses to provide a 6-foot berm, that the vehicle use area can be less than 100 feet from right now, there's a condition in the existing PUD where the vehicle use area needs to be 100 feet from the county road. If he provides a 6-foot berm, that can be reduced to 30 foot. That's consistent with our existing land development code and the buffering and setback requirements. Also, the ATV UTV riding cannot be closer than 75 foot from any residential use parcel or residential structure on site. It's only a minor nuance from the existing condition, but the applicant owns a lot of property on the east side of the site, and he wanted some leeway in allowing for getting closer than the existing condition, which requires 75 feet restriction on ATV riding through the entire perimeter. Since there are residential uses on the west side, we felt that we would maintain that 75 feet on where there's residential uses or a residential structure, because there's a lot of it is agriculture land use or agriculture land use or agriculture zoning, but there's residential units out there. So the 75 feet would stay there.
Mr. Harvey.
Mr. Brown, so what I'm reading, changing to buffering requirements allowing for construction 6-foot berm and providing prohibition of ATV riding closer than 75 feet.
Yeah.
So you're saying 75 feet and a 6-foot berm? Both?
Yes. Well,
Around
he does not have to put, the applicant does not have to put, but I believe it's his intent, but I don't want to speak for him. Along that residential, and we're talking the Red Fern.
Which is the western boundary, right?
The western boundary, which is the Red Fern neighborhood, Red Fern Lane neighborhood. I believe his intent is to provide a 6-foot buffer in there, but I don't want to speak for him. But regardless of that, he still has to maintain 75 feet prohibition from ATV riding closer than 75 feet from the property line along that western boundary where there's residential uses.
Do you feel like 75 feet's enough?
I believe it probably is. It is what was in the existing PUD. It was since from day one, and it's been carried over. I don't know why it would have changed because of this change. So from that standpoint, I believe it's adequate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Continue, Mr. Brown.
There is some clarification of wording on emergency services. They still required to be there during the events. Both the Director of Emergency Services, Mr. Chief Romay, and Chief Patterson with the fire have both reviewed. In fact, they drafted that wording and approved it. So there's some minor changes in there. The other requirements we've added is the owner will obtain all applicable permits from DEP for water and sewer or sewer systems if and when required. There was in discussions with with the Department of Health and permitting and some of the expansion of uses, especially related to the camping. He may trigger at some point a requirement for a DEP permit for his wastewater facility. If it goes over 10,000 gallons per day, DEP would have to permit it. This just says if he triggers that threshold, he will have to get a permit from DEP. And then a copy of all applicable permits will be provided by the applicant to the Planning and Development Service Department within 30 days of receipt of said permit by the applicant. That was just, I believe it was something left out of the original, and it just will help us monitor what's going on out there if we're receiving the permits, a copy of the permits. Pursuant, one of the requirements of the PUD is that be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Well, that was the summary of the changes. Maybe I should ask if you have any questions on the specifics of the changes at this point.
Anything, Commissioners?
Okay.
Clear.
Okay. Pursuant to policy A193810F for the future land use element, rural recreational uses are allowed in agriculture to land use subject to additional regulations in the Land Development Code. Rural recreational uses are defined in the comp plan as any commercial or non-commercial recreational activity which by nature of either customary operation or use of the noise impacts of such use require the use to be located in a large parcel of land and may be appropriately located outside the urban area. Allowed uses shall include but not be limited to private nonprofit camps, racetracks, gun archery ranges, off-road facilities, mud bogging, and motorcycle dirt track courses. That's what this use is. It meets that definition as a rural recreational use and is allowed in the Ag 2 land use. Policy 162 of the infrastructure elements allows sanitary sewer concurrency to be met by on-site sewage treatment and disposal systems approved by the Department of Health, which this applicant has. The proposed changes to the allowed days of use of the campground, the days and hours of operation for ATV, UTV riding, hours of operation for mud bogging and airboat racing are generally consistent with the goals, policies, and objectives of the adopted comp plan and are consistent with the designated land use. Section 30233 of the Land Development Code does provide supplementary provisions for the ATV riding area, campgrounds, as well as the mud bogging area, and Section 20519 of the code includes setback provisions for mud bogging uses. All these provisions are complied with, consistent with the Land Development Code. County Road 310 is a two-lane minor collector with an adopted level of service D. Based on the most recent traffic counts from 2016, County Road 310 operates an acceptable level of service. The proposed changes to the number of days allowed for the camping and times of operation will not result in significant adverse impact to this facility. The reduction in the distance between the perimeter of the vehicle use area and the abutting county road in locations where the 6-foot berm is provided is consistent with the buffer requirements of Table 703B. Changes to the EMS condition, as I indicated previously, have been approved by the Emergency Services Department and will continue to guarantee provisions for a qualified paramedic, EMT, and sheriff resources are available during the events. The size and location of the permitted on-site treatment and disposal system is approved by the Department of Health and meets the sanitary sewer concurrency provisions of Policy D161 and Policy D162 of the County Comp Plan. And pursuant to the Department of Health permitted capacity for the septic system, it will allow for the use of 8 cabins and 68 RV sites as it stands today. Also, during the events allowed by the Department of Health, portable restrooms are allowed to supplement the demand that would be generated during the events. The number of restrooms required as a condition of the change of the amended PUD would have to meet the standards set forth in Rule 64E 6.01.01, Table PR1 of the Florida Administrative Code. That's the Department of Health standards. And that would supplement during that additional demand that would be generated during the events. The uses as they are proposed to exist are consistent with the comp plan and allowed in the comp plan. Mud bogging, airboat racing, ATV, UTV riding, and camping are all uses which are allowed within the existing PUD. These uses will be continued to be allowed pursuant to this amendment with changes to the allowed days and hours of operation of the uses. The Planning Commission heard this case on July 13th, recommended approval, and staff recommends approval of the amended conditions as proposed. And I'll go over them real quick one more time. With the year-round camping on 26 acres, which would allow 15 are designated RV sites, 125 campsites, 8 cabins. ATV riding 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. throughout the year, 24 events per calendar year, and an event would extend from 8 p.m. on Friday through 8 p.m. on Sunday, which would allow mud bogging from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday, airboat racing from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. ATV riding during the events only would be allowed 24 hours a day. Meeting the vehicle sound levels as set forth in 3020337A of the Land Development Code, except for those vehicles directly involved in the mud bogging use and compliance with the amplified sound ordinance. Changes to the buffering requirements allowed for the construction of a 6-foot berm, and prohibition of ATV, UTV riding closer than 75 feet from any residential use or parcel with residential structure. The clarification of the required emergency services, and then also the additional changes to require any permit from DEP should it be required, and comply with all applicable permits. A copy of all applicable permits being provided to Planning and Development Services. That's staff's recommendation. Any questions of staff at this time?
Comments, questions, additional at this time before we hear from the public?
Mr. Chairman, I have a lot of questions, but I'd like to hear from the public before I go.
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll open it up because we have agents on both sides.
Mr. Chairman, if I
This is
could,
a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the next would be the applicant, according to our quasi-judicial procedure. That's number one. And number two, I just want to point out for the record that this is actually PUD-16-002, according to all the documents here, but the agenda actually says PUD 16-001, so I just want to correct that for the record.
Corrections noted. Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll hear from the public. We have, at this segment of the hearing, we'll have for and against. Mr. Leary?
Applicant first.
Yes, Mr. Leary, we're gonna take the public portion of it first.
No, applicant would be first.
It does have to be
Yes.
first? Okay.
Yep.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Clerk, and staff. My name is Phil Leary. I'm the principal in Leary Governmental Affairs Consulting and a professional land use planner. Today, and we want to compliment the staff on the excellent report that they have done. We did also, this particular PUD amendment went before the DRC and was recommended unanimously for approval. The applicant is requesting this amendment to the PUD to allow for a more efficient business model. As we all do in our businesses, we have to look at changes and things that will enhance it and keep it going stronger. They currently have allocated for this particular operation almost 1,200 acres
And the reason for that is that also helps to increase and strengthen their business model. With the approval of the amendment, the PUD would enhance recreation-based ecotourism, which is certainly consistent with the economic development goals of the Putnam County Chamber and of this commission. The really only change of significance from the existing PUD is the establishment of year-round camping. My clients have taken great pride, as many of y'all have been out there know, in providing a family-oriented and friendly outdoor recreation venue that is secure. We have full-time, during events, police presence. We have emergency vehicles present. And we meet all or exceed all health department requirements for sanitary sewer. It's a very cohesive operation with the environment. This property is both designated in the future land use map as agriculture and the zoning's agriculture. So looking at the table, and I'm not sure what page it is in the report, it's towards the back. There's a list that goes through the existing PUD, which we currently have, and what the proposed PUD, the minimal changes. Actually, we'll be reducing the number of events from 26 a year to 24, which is substantial. And again, the camping 365 days a year is critically important to the business model, and we've seen a tremendous demand for people wanting to utilize that facility more than just the event weekends. The ATV riding, which we also have a lot of interest in, and people, this is one of the premier sites, and you'll hear that in just a few minutes with a video clip we have from some proponents of the PUD amendment that weren't able to be here, that live out of town. But it's certainly something that is very positive for the county, and from the standpoint of us at some point in time trying to reverse that negative net mitigation of people leaving, providing these types of ecotourism based recreational opportunities is critically important. So if I can get the staff to help me, we'll just have a short video. It's about 2 minutes.
If I could interrupt, since these are folks that aren't here for cross-examination, I think it's more appropriate that the video be presented during the public input.
That's fine.
Portion of the hearing.
You okay with it?
Which would be after the testimony for and the testimony against, and then during the public input portion, it would be appropriate to then present that video.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, my last comment will just be that this particular amendment is consistent with all the land development requirements, the comprehensive plan, and certainly has been approved and gone through the vetting process with your Planning Commission and the Development Review Commission Committee, and we certainly think that it warrants approval. So I'll stop there and answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Leary? See none? Thanks. Hold tight. All right. On my public comment, do you have any preference on who goes first, for or against?
Our land development code sets out a procedure, and the proponents for should be next, and then against, and then after that, and any rebuttals, and then after that would be the public comment portion.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna do that then. The for. No, wait a minute. You just said public at the end. So Mr. Leary was for. Is that correct? No.
No, Mr. Leary is representing the applicant. And then we have interested persons that are for it, and then interested persons that are against it. And interested persons are those that have evidence, including testimony to present. General public comment, opinions, essentially come at the end.
You've changed it a little bit. I'm good to go. Okay, anybody for this? We're going to open the public hearing part to the public at this point. And anybody wishing to speak for the organization, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing and we'll open it up for against. And I have two on record at this point. Let me make sure that's right. No, I have three. I have Cindy Robbins, I have Cynthia Locke, and Joe Locke. So who would like to go first with those bunch? Joe Locke, welcome, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Joe Locke. I live at 109 Rodman Lane, Palaca, Florida, 32177. Mr. Leary said they were decreasing the number of events, and in reality are asking for a 50% increase in the number of events. The current PUD allows 30 one-day events. The PUD he's requesting is for 24 weekend events, which will be 2 days, so it's 48 days total. Another thing I heard is about when the gates were open and gates be closed. The PUD that suggested the gates will never be closed. They're allowed to camp. They're allowed to ride from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So on Friday, they'll be riding from 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. at night. When the events start, which is 8 p.m., then they'll be riding all the way through till Sunday at 8 p.m. So if you live on Red Fox Road, 75 foot from the event, you get to hear ATVs, sometimes thousands, running from 8 a.m. on Friday morning to 8 p.m. on Sunday night. Christmas, Thanksgiving, you get thousands of ATVs, possibly, running from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 75 foot from your door. Also, the gates never close, so all the traffic coming in and out goes all night. At the Planning Commission, one of the members of the commission said, well, you know, make the best of it. Maybe you want a handy way at the end of your property. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a rural way of life. We've lived there for a long time, and that's the reason we live there, is a rural way of life. We understand that the applicant has a right to operate a business. However, we feel like the residents nearby were never considered in this business. There's ways around it. We can all get together, I think, and come up with some solutions. But 75 foot from a property line for thousands of ATVs, open 24 hours a day, there's no other activity or business in the county that generates this amount of noise this close to a residential area that's allowed to operate 24 hours a day. So we're asking just for a little consideration for the residents in the area. The last thing is they talked about the law enforcement and the ENTs for the weekend events, or the events that are going to have every other weekend. What about now if he opens this campground, he's allowed to operate it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. What kind of stress or demands is this going to put on the ENTs, since he's not required to have them for the everyday events? So the ENTs and the police, what kind of stress is this going to put them on them? Pull the log from the events from the police, which we did, and I'm going to guess at this, okay? I can't remember when we should have dug them out. I apologize. But it seems like there was over 150 calls for the 30-day events in 2015. This is just for the 30-day events. So if we go to 365 days out there, how much police presence are we going to have out there? Does the county have that kind of manpower? And I think my wife will cover everything else, and I appreciate your all's time, and thanks for listening to me, and I'm sure the commissioners are tired of hearing me call. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. Okay, next we have Cynthia Locke. Good morning.
I think I gave it to y'all the last time we were here at a meeting, but here it is again. It's a petition from 26 of the residents out there who are against the 24-hour.
Give them to Tony, we'll be fine. Ms. Cynthia, if you would, please give your, we got your name and your address for the record, please, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm Cindy Locke, and I reside at 109 Rodman Lane, and we live off of County Road 310. Okay, allowing ATV riding 24 hours Friday and Saturday, mud bogging from 9:30 to 5:30, airboat racing with a 24-hour entrance with no alcohol restrictions, with noise and traffic 24 hours at the events. That's 48 days out of the calendar year, with a full-time campground with ATV riding from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now, is that going to entice working families or retirees to build homes and live in our area? I mean, we're already wanting to move. Our part of the county now, it's beautiful. Y'all know where it's at. And we need to look into the future and see how we want this area to grow. Do we want full-time working families and retirees who pay taxes? Or do we want full-time campers at a campground using our resources 365 days a year? Or do we want part-time landowners who use their property for camping? Now let me explain that. The residents who live on Red Fox Road, which we all know has to be 75 feet from the owner's property line, they have a new owner that bought property at the end of their road. And they use their property for camping. They invite their friends and their families. At one point, there were over 50 ATVs at that property. And they rode their ATVs up and down Red Fox Road all through the night. Now, when are they there? They're there during the Hogwaller events. And then they proceed to ride their ATVs to the events off the roadway of County Road 310. Now, the law can't enforce people riding their ATVs on their private property or on a private road. So that would mean my husband and I, we could buy ATVs, we could invite our friends to our 12 acres, and we could ride all around our property from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I don't think our neighbors would like that, but we could do it. We could do it 24 hours. So the law, we're not breaking the law either if we did that, and there's no ordinance for ATV riding. So, this is generating a problem in our area, a big problem. If we choose to have working families or retirees in our area, the Hogwaller needs to operate in a safe, family-friendly, and quiet atmosphere between certain hours. There has been thousands of people at these 24-hour events. The mud trucks from the trucks hauling their ATVs and the mud trucks coming and going to the Hogwaller are loud, and many have aftermarket exhaust. And I don't know if y'all know what that is, but it just makes, I guess you just can't ride through the mud quietly, Because the entry gates are open 24 hours during these events, we hear this traffic all through the night, along with the 24-hour noise from the site. Now, Red Fox Road is the closest road to the Hogwaller. We're the next road on Rodman Lane. Now, we hear the noise at our road. We have people who signed the petition, all of them did, on our road. I mean, I have a friend who lives on County Road 315. She can hear the noise on her property all the way on County Road 315. So the closer you get to the noise, the louder it's going to be. That's what we hear. So we have a noise ordinance for amplified sound, but not for aftermarket vehicles on a private property, which is a lot louder, especially in volumes. So that would mean, okay, I can ride my ATV all around my property and terrorize my neighbors with noise, and they can't call the law because I'm not breaking the law. But if I turn my stereo on loud, they can call the law. I mean, this makes no sense. It just makes no sense at all. We would like to see ATV riding. We would like to establish like a quiet time, like after 11 o'clock p.m. And we would like to see ATV riding until dusk on a daily basis from this campground that will be open 365 days. And we would like that to apply on any Sunday. Most everyone who signed the petition and work have lived quietly for over 10 years and would like to come home and enjoy their outdoor space, especially in the fall. There are also many children within a mile of the Hogwaller who go to school and ride the bus. And a quiet time from 11 p.m. to 9 a.m. is vital for working families. Now, there are solutions to the noise. I have some here, but I just won't read them. We have pointed out to our county officials that the owner was non-compliant with his prior PUD. We were quickly told by Mr. Hammonds and other county officials that they were understaffed in codes and enforcement, and that the PUD really wasn't a priority. So after months of complaints and myself documenting the violations, the county finally sent the owner a letter of non-compliance, which is why I'm here. The amended PUD, which y'all have, is excessive as the owners have allowed additional days for events and now wants to operate a full-time campground. Now, this is way out of the parameters of the original PUD. To me, it shows the board that the owner or the county are not willing to listen to our concerns. In fact, in the prior PUD, the residents who live west of the hog waller were never even mentioned in the PUD. So why is this activity that generates this amount of noise allowed to operate 24 hours a day? Okay, you have to realize there's going to be 140 campsites in this new PUD. So there could be up to 3 to 4 campers per site. So that would mean that 500 people could camp. And if they all have an ATV, there could be like 500 ATVs riding only 75 feet from a residential structure. Okay, that's loud. I mean, do you want that next to you? I don't think so. Okay, and they can do this from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and during events, they can do it 24 hours. And that does not include the non-campers who come to these events. So there's going to actually be more ATVs, not just the ones camping. So we've been living here quietly for over 30 years, raising our children, working, shopping, eating out at local restaurants, and paying our taxes. Now, there's nice homes on County Road 310 and down these private roads. Why do we want to discourage property buyers who want to build homes and live full-time in our rural area? This is what we're going to do. I'm going to move. What if I sold my house to someone who has ATVs? I mean, that's about the only person that's going to want to buy it. And they get to ride their ATVs around our property and up and down our road. And I mean, it's just going to ruin the whole area. But we're asking the board to let us have a voice and work together with the county and the owner to try to alleviate the noise and the traffic. That's all we're asking. So we can sleep. I love sleep. God, I'm almost 60 years old. I want to sleep, okay? And I want to enjoy my rural way of life. And I want to encourage growth in our area with homes and children that play on the private roads. I mean, children can't even play on Red Fox Road anymore. The 24-hour events, they affect our life, and we need to do this right if we're going to have this business out there. We want to preserve our rural way of living, and we're asking the board to just let us have a voice. Let's get in some sort of workshop. I don't want to come back here. I'm going to come back here at every meeting if this PUD's passed. And my only recourse, because if ATVs can ride on private property or down private roads, our only recourse is to file a nuisance complaint and get an attorney and go through this whole process. This is ridiculous. I mean, we need some rules and regulations out there, to avoid the noise from these ATVs. I don't know why someone can't go to this site and ride from 9 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. That's not good enough. You got to ride 24 hours? I mean, the vehicles are dangerous. I don't even know why they wouldn't want to ride at night. I just don't understand. So that's what we're asking. We're asking for a voice. I mean, I don't want to move, but I'm going to move if we don't do something. And it's just creating a problem in our area. And it's not going to be just our area. It could morph all the way over to Interlaken and all the way back into town on 19. So it's up to y'all. You're making the decision here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Locke. Okay, we have Cindy Robbins from, I'll let you give the address. That's your duty. Good morning.
My name is Cindy Robbins. I live at 113 Red Fox Road. I've been there 20 years. I'm a resident, I'm a registered voter, and I'm also a passport holder, but it's not to the hog waller. This is the nuisance of the 24-hour ride, and this is everyone that lives on Red Fox Road. I am representing every one of us. If you'd like to see this, we have 2 more signatures than what Cindy has also. When Dave Ego came in and bought a piece of land and mowed down 14-foot right-of-way of Greenway's property, pulled in a structure, 6 campers in February, and mowed Red Fox down like we didn't even exist. Then me and Skeet and Gary Warren end up at the gate. I was in Boohoo. I've lost both of my parents that sung on the Gospel Vision, Sister Dolly Harrell. When these people came in, they were bold and sneaky like the devil. This is the reports of me, Gary, and 2 other neighbors calling the law consistently to get some control over Red Fox Road. Red Fox Road has not been rezoned for a 24-hour ride. There's a 10 o'clock ordinance. But then we have one of these big drunks hang on my 6-foot commercial fence, shaking and rattling my fence. I end up in court with this idiot. This is how the behavior of these people, because they're binge drinking 24 hours. Miss Christine Brown, Judge Christine, she states that the state of Florida, and it's on this disc, that you are to be on private road, you are to be a licensed vehicle to be on this road. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because we're going to have to call the Judge Christine up. This has changed our lives on Red Fox Road. You can't sleep. It goes. This back line, Skeet, you just got 75 feet off our property lines. He just put the fence up. They have been riding this property for 3 solid years against the property lines of Red Fox Road. Somebody has forgot about us. Here is this is our area. This area is wetlands, and we need to preserve this. This should be a buffer. This land that's beside us should be a buffer so that we can tolerate some of this type of noise. You have no idea. Gary Warren and I will be more than welcome to fix you a porter steak and have some s'mores on these events and let you listen to what we hear. Now, we have got to have some kind of control. I will continue to call the law. Miss Captain Wells and Lieutenant Butts is the 2 people. They finally got out there and told these people you're not allowed to ride on this County Road 310. It's a $168 fine. The Dave Ego, he bowed up at the police officer, and there's a witness, Cindy's the witness to the fact, and told him he was going to go anyway. And the law said, hey, we're going to give you a $168 fine. He said, go ahead and give me a ticket. He said, I'm going to seize your 4-wheeler. They turned around and mind their manners. We got 3 weekends of peace. And then all of a sudden, here comes the little sneaky. They're riding out. The 24-hour ride hit 310. That's 310 feet from my mailbox. And y'all, we can't be notified, Red Fox Road, if there's a change, then he should be 300 feet off our property line. This has caused me to come out of my character, and I am extremely upset about this. You have no idea how these people act when they are binge drinking all night long. This is like 5th grade level stuff. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Ms. Robin. Okay, anybody else?
That would be after the rebuttals, sir.
Yes.
So rebuttals would be next, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, let's see if anybody from the audience wants to speak against. Anybody else? Seeing none, now we'll entertain it for rebuttals. Right. Anybody rebuttals? That would be you, Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I'd like to clarify is if you will look in your staff report, it's on page 7 of 13 of mine. The original PUD allowed for 2 events per month per calendar year on weekends and holidays. So a weekend's 2 days. A holiday could add a 3rd day, although we haven't done that. So what we're doing now is saying 24 events for a year for 2 days and on the weekend. So we actually are reducing substantially the number of events per year. The issues that both of the opponents brought up are issues that don't have anything to do with us. Those things on Red Fox Road or Rodman Lane or anything, those are issues with those property owners. And it's important to note that land's not zoned residential. It's agriculture. All of this land use designation and zoning is agriculture. And there's a reason for that. And subsequently, my client and what they're doing on almost 1,200 acres is an agricultural use. Basically, it's an agritourism use. So we feel like we're more in compliance, your staff and your planning commission and your DRC has basically approved that and substantiated that we do meet the criteria in the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan. So I'll stop there, and I would like to show that clip at some time, Mr. Counselor. Thank you.
Let's see if there's any questions for. Hold up, sit in the way. Hold on. We'll do this orderly. Any questions for Mr. Leary?
Mr. Chairman, I do. Mr. Leary?
Phil, come stay at the podium until we've exhausted all the questions, please.
I understand that it's zoned agricultural, but it does affect residential areas out there.
There is no residential areas, Commissioner. Those lands are zoned agriculture. You can't call. There may be residences there,
I'm sorry,
but they're agricultural.
Out there. I meant residents and not residential.
Okay.
I do apologize for that. Would your client be willing, and we saw this happen with the Boy Scouts of America out in my district, to sit down with the community and work out a situation that would be plausible for both sides here? Would your applicant be willing to do that?
Well, Mr. Harvey, what we have done is we've sat down with the staff, and based on our original PUD approval, and we have come up with additional criteria to offset any adverse effects. And at this point in time, I believe what the opponents want is not consistent with the business model and what we're doing with the particular PUD. So we do plan on eventually building a berm completely from 310 around to the western boundary. During one of the other things is during non-event camping and ATV riding, we do have staff out there 24 hours a day. We're monitoring. I think you'll see when you see the clip, there is no drunken parties and all these problems. That's just a complete misnomer. And I think that we've done everything even beyond what the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan call for.
Mr. Leary, I wouldn't say there is none. I've seen some Facebook clips of friends of mine that go out, and there are some. We can't regulate all that, and I do appreciate that. That's the only questions I have, sir.
Commissioner Flagg.
Mr. Chairman, I want to segue from Mr. Harvey. I think the question was, have there at least been an attempt to meet with them? You say you met with staff and you're dealing with regulations, but have you met with the neighbors and dealt with the residences? And I guess that's the question that was not answered.
Well, Commissioner, as you know, being a long-time elected official and having dealt with a number of land use and zoning issues, we use the staff as the mediator, and that prevents any discord between my client, the landowner, and opponents of the PUD. So essentially, we've used the staff to mediate some of these issues and to add additional criteria to address many of the concerns that the opponents have brought up.
So do you feel that due diligence and good faith with, quote, using the staff? I mean, my concern would be, why can't the applicant and staff and those who feel affected sit in the same room, have the discussion, and then at least say, you know what, we put forth our very best effort to reach resolution. It's one thing when people are reasonable. It's another thing when they're being unreasonable. And I don't know. I don't know the group dynamics as it relates to what has been done. And I'm not saying that no effort was put in it, but I'm not hearing. What I want to hear is that the adjacent neighboring individuals who reside in the vicinity of the activity, there's not been a meeting of the minds for resolution purposes, not for everybody to fall in love and go out on a date, but at least for some reconciliation and some consensus.
Yes, sir. We've done that. We've done that through the staff and through the process of the opponents.
But those people were in that same room, is what you're saying?
They were in with your staff. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily, having been a planning director and land use planner for 30 years, that you always accomplish things through, sitting down. You accomplish more things through mediation, and essentially that's what the staff is served at. That's what you pay them for, And what we did, working with them, is developed additional criteria like the setbacks, the hours of operation, meeting all the other regulatory requirements for other agencies to operate our facility. And we have 1,200 acres, 2 sections of land. So most of the riding are in those areas that are north and northeast of the agricultural properties that have residences on them. Now, sound carries. I can tell you, every year in the Azalea Festival, you remember Miss Kitchens complaining about the noise, and so, but there are certain things that if we're going to establish and have ecotourism and events and things that promote the county, that there's going to be some inconvenience. It's just the nature of it. I can hear the racetrack in Satsuma from the front porch of my mom's house every time they're racing. But, I go inside, I don't hear anything. So to answer your question, to get back to it, we think we've done our due diligence. Be glad to let the staff, tell you what they've done. And I think what's presented today is, more than meeting the requirements of the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan.
Okay. Any further questions?
At this time, no.
There, Mr. Leary, your client, do you have any idea what the time frame on constructing that buffer, particularly on the west side of the properties, would be?
We're working on it now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This isn't really for Mr. Leary, it's for Mr. Brown. Mr. Leary brought this up through Commissioner Flagg's question. Mr. Brown, could you look at your notes and advise this commissioner of what kind of mediation, when you sat down with the applicant and the landowners adjacent, what kind of mediation did you work through to accomplish
I wouldn't myself call it necessarily mediation. I've had
it was referred to as mediation.
I've had sit-down meetings with the Locks. I've talked to them numerous times on the telephone, hearing their concerns. I've spoken to citizens on Red Fox Lane. A number of the issues with Red Fox Lanes are Red Fox Lane and not tied directly with this. And have attempted to, as part of our recommendation, 'cause what you see is not necessarily what the applicant originally came in and wanted. And I can't tell you where those changes have happened, but there's been some changes from what they originally came in trying to address some of the issues we've heard. But I knew walking in here, staff didn't address all those issues. I had received some comments that they just wanted, and I'm not referring to anybody in this meeting right now, but I've received telephone calls and emails of people just wanting it shut down for various, And so staff, working with what's in the comp plan and the land development code, believe that the recommendations, some of them carried forward from previous versions of the PUD. And so I don't know why they were there, but I believe from the staff standpoint, we have something that's consistent with the comp plan and the land development code, and goes a long way to I believe addressing some of those concerns. An example is our land development code right now, the widest buffer requirement of any uses is 30 feet. This project required to stay 75 feet, which is double from whatever we have. Our maximum buffer width in the land development code today, it's double. Is the 75 feet adequate? You asked earlier. I think it probably is. I don't know, because that has been carried forward since the original PUD. I don't know what they went through at that point, but I do believe it's probably adequate at this point. I haven't been given anything that would lead me to believe it's not adequate.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brown and Mr. Fillery, as far as the 75-foot setback buffer, if the berm is built, is it inside or outside of that buffer zone? Or is it right in the middle of it?
I believe it would be in the intent. My understanding it would be within, it would be between the 75-foot prohibition for ATV riding and the property line.
So
within that, the
theoretically expands it? Is that right? No?
It would be on the 75 on the border of the 75-foot property. So yes, sir, for the length of the well, it could be over depending on the width of the buffer. So
okay,
there's no requirement as to where it would be located, but
so if it was outside, like Mr. Fillery said, it actually could expand the buffer line another 20 or whatever the width of the berm is.
It could.
So that could actually happen there.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to understand too, these land development regulations in the code with the setbacks are something that you or your predecessors adopted. And if you don't feel they're adequate as you go through many of these iterations of land use changes and zoning changes, then, I'll give you some free consulting advice. Go back and reevaluate and get your staff to make different recommendations and amend your ordinance. So, but as we stand here today, everything we've done is consistent with every ordinance that the county's adopted.
We have. I keep reiterating the berm. I think it's important. We did it with the Walmart distribution center. We came up with a berm to control noise from there if it ever comes to life, but I think this is equally important. I think we have a noise issue here more than anything else. I really do. And it's commendable that the setbacks are doubled. Actually, they're more than doubled and could potentially even be increased further than what we're talking here. So there is a potential here. So I guess we're looking for something to hang our hat on from you and your client as far as time when the buffers would be constructed and relief for these citizens because they need a voice, as it was said earlier also.
Well, the berm's under construction now on 310, and we plan on carrying it around, and we're going to get that done as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If the berm's under construction now, where is it at? On the property line or off the 75?
Well, it's on the 310 entrance now,
so
next to the county road.
Property line?
Oh, no, it's inside the property line, inside the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it's up against the property line, up against the fence?
No, it's just back. It's probably, I don't know.
That's what he was
50
just saying, Commissioner Harvey.
100
feet back. It could straddle the line at 75 feet, or it could be over, making it another 20, 25 feet.
Yeah, the intent is to keep the 75 foot and put the berm outside of that, so you're going to have an additional area.
In your professional opinion, where should the berm be put? Near the residence on the west side? Where should that be put? In the 75 feet, beyond the 75 feet, up to the property line? Where, in your professional opinion as a planner, where would you recommend the applicant put that berm at?
Well, for aesthetics purposes, from a planning standpoint, the berm should be within that 75-foot buffer, but I'll let my client. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, that's what we're going to do, within the 75 feet. But we don't want the berm right up against the property line of those agricultural. Right. We want it back away from it.
Okay. So that would be from the property line to wherever the berm is, that's going to be undeveloped property.
Correct. Yeah. Yes,
sir. Then the berm will be there, and there could be some more undeveloped property.
Mr. Alford, Mr. Alford, before you sit down, if I could ask you one more question. On Red Fox Lane, is there a shortcut or anywhere they're cutting through the fence and coming on? You're taking care of that. Yeah. Very well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, from a liability standpoint, we couldn't have that.
Mr. Flagg.
Mr. Chairman, also, while the applicant is here and, of course, the agent, help me understand the business model that says your success is based upon 24 hours a day on the ATV riding. I mean, again, I don't quite understand because I usually need four wheels and a lot of steel around it when I'm riding. But help me understand that business model where it would require a person, say 3 o'clock in the morning, that's how they have fun and they just kind of get down, they feeling it.
Well, I think that's probably a mischaracterization, but let me just put it in this terms. If somebody wanted you to do a funeral and put it in a canoe, the casket in a canoe on a trailer, would you try to permit it? I mean, if they were going to pay for it, you would do that. I mean, it's basically we have requests for people to ride. Now, they don't necessarily ride 24 hours a day, but some of them do, and so it's an amenity is part of that event 24 times a year, from Friday at 8 p.m. to Sunday at 8 p.m.
All due respect, I don't understand the relativity of your example.
Well, the example is from a business standpoint, if somebody wants something, Commissioner, I mean, irregardless of what your business is, if you have a model and you're trying to enhance the stability, the economic stability, and people are wanting this, you want to give it to them. I mean, from the standpoint of maintaining that business and making sure it's profitable. I mean,
all at the same time of maintaining good neighbors. I don't have a clue about that. I didn't know whether they did ATV riding on shifts, or you had so many people that was doing 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. I'm just trying to get an understanding.
Well, during that time frame, anybody that's there, that's inside the property, can ride. And basically, they ride in areas, the wooded areas. They're not riding, next to 310 or trying to get right over close to the Red Fox Lane properties. I mean, the trails are in the woods.
And what role does alcohol play at all in this operation?
We do not sell alcohol. Alcohol is allowed, but we do monitor it. And, when there's a problem, we deal with it.
Okay.
We have both staff, full-time staff, for non-event, time frames, and then for events we have, a significant.
So it's like a BYOB thing?
Correct. Yeah, it's just like any other campground. If you may not go camping, but if you go to a campground, most campgrounds do not sell alcohol, but you can bring your own beer and wine, whatever you want.
Yeah, if you're in the camper, I mean, that's certainly fine. But if you're out on an ATV and you got a little alcohol in you, I think that might create a little bit of an issue.
That's why we have liability insurance.
Okay.
Question I have, mufflers and spark arresters, aren't they required in the park?
I'm sorry, what?
On the ATVs, mufflers and spark arresters?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the difference between noise and the mud trucks, which are already in a pit.
Correct.
With a buffer. Now we have an additional berm going up. I'm trying to visualize all this. The only other things that produce noise are the music or entertainment, which is controlled under an ordinance that is legal and bona fide, and the mufflers requirements and the spark arresters to keep fire from happening in the woods.
Right. And Mr. Chairman, let me point out, the berm isn't required in your land development regulations, so that's an additional,
I think it's an important piece, and the Offords, for a little history, I have to stand up for the Offords to the point that we had illegal mud bogging going on private property in the whole area for a number of years, which everybody in this room can agree was a nuisance and a liability. And we did years ago ask the Offords if they would be interested with their property of making a facility like this with no help from the taxpayers. It's all private, and they did stand up and do it. And we have them going to one, but we have to work through the nuisances that it's made, and I don't think they're near what it was when there was no facility for mud bogger or ATV riders before this facility existed. And I'm quite confident we can get through this. I like the sound of the berm and the noise control, because everything we heard from the residents is about noise. And of course, rowdiness on public roads, which we'll address through law enforcement.
Right. We have no control.
And that's nothing to do with Magnolia Dunes LLC. It's totally outside of that scope. So that's going to have to be dealt with separately. And I didn't know there was a problem with that, but we can help there. Commissioner Pellicer.
I've never attended a hog waller event at all. I've heard tell of lots and lots of people, traffic situations up and down 310 and some trash issues, which I think the Offords have been pretty diligent about cleaning up afterwards, I'm told. My Question is, with just a guesstimate of how many folks are there on one of these events, a low number to 100, just give me a gamut there.
Which event?
Just from the extreme lowest to the extreme highest.
We have
something.
For one of the events.
For any event.
From just Skeet Alford, P.O. Box 913, Hollister, Florida.
Welcome, Skeet.
All right. Probably the lowest is 50, and the most is probably around 35. 3,500 or something. Between 35 and 4,000. We don't know.
If you could explain your big weekends.
Those are extremely only once or twice a year. Some have an event like that. The rest of them, most of them, the average is, less than 1,000 or right there in that number.
Okay, that hinges my other question. How much law enforcement presence are you having there when you've got a 1,000 people? Are you having a deputy there if you have 50 and you having?
We've been doing this. We're starting our 9th year. We have learned over time to judge the weekends. We know when the big weekends are going to be now, and we employ, I want to say, we just learned how to do it, and we let the deputies determine. Matter of fact, when they're there, we have a schedule, and we say we need this many, but if they need more, they determine if they need more or they need less.
They've developed.
And that's how we let law enforcement make those decisions to tell us what they think is appropriate, because they know what they can handle.
Okay.
That's like at night, there's always 2 there together. They don't like being there alone, so they like 2 of them. So even though we don't have 100 people there, there's 2 of them there. Just makes them feel better. And so we work with law enforcement. We let them determine that.
So they kind of do what they feel is adequate to cover the situation.
Yes, we've worked with them, like I said, for 8 years now, and they've worked out what they feel comfortable with.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, will you let me know when we can show that clip?
Yeah,
I think it'll answer some questions.
Well, when would you like it, Mr. Manning?
Well, it'll be after any rebuttals, so if there's any further rebuttals.
Rebuttals, we'll start
Finish
on the left with Cindy Robbins, and we'll work to the locks. We have a problem. We're changing tapes, so we're
give us a second.
Just a couple seconds. Go ahead, Diane. What's that?
Cindy Robbins.
Made money.
Okay, we're ready to go. Thank you, Diane. Tony, you still good? Okay, let's continue our meeting.
Okay, Cindy Robbins, 113 Red Fox Road. That's incorrect. Both of my deeds at
Pull that microphone down where we can hear you.
Both of my deeds at 113 and 117 states that is Rodman Unit 1 and that it is a subdivision residential area. Both of my deeds, I bought that land from James Lell. Do y'all know that the girls stand on top of their trucks flashing theirself? The boys stand at the bathhouse taking the water hose and spraying the girls down? The last time I went, I told them, don't you dare. You got a law officer that was not even in uniform that sexually assaulted a girl in a tent. It's all on report.
Let's stay with the elements of the PUD.
So
that's on private property, and that needs to be dealt with. I agree, but it's not pertinent to this order of business we're having here today.
Well, we're family, we're residential. We'd rather not hear or know of this.
Well, I agree, but we still have to stay within what's happening in this geographical area.
That is a subdivision residential. Both of my deeds.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Come on, Mr. Locke. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Harvey.
Mr. Brown, could you check into that real quick if that's correct, what Ms. Rawlings was just saying about the residential?
Here's your expert. The zoning is clearly.
Yes, sir. Specifically, we don't enforce deed restrictions. They are not part of the LDC. Those are strictly private agreements between whoever subdivided the property and whoever bought the property. We have nothing to do with them.
So our zoning is agriculture, even though she says she lives in residential.
Our zoning and land use is agriculture.
Thank you, sir. Just need a little clarification.
Mr. Locke.
109 Rodman Lane.
We've got your name and address.
Mr. Leary left one thing off about the current PUD. He was saying that the number of events. The last part of that same sentence, if you read it, says not to exceed 30 calendar days per year. So now they're going to 48 days per year. The original PUD states not to exceed 30 calendar days per year. So they are not decreasing. They're asking for a 50% increase in the number of days they can have 24-hour events. I go with Mr. Flagg, why do we need to ride? If I wanted to have and maybe I'll start one. Maybe I'll start a juke joint out there that operates 24 hours a day because that's what my customers want. You're not going to let me do that. The zoning's not going to let me do that. That's not a good reason. The berm that they're putting up, now let's remember, the berm he's saying is not in the current PUD. He's just saying he'll do that. So all we have is his word. The current berm that he's building is only 4 foot high, and he told us he's going to plant on top of it. That's not, we got him saying that. Now, I had one more, but as being an old man, it's kind of slipped by me. We've talked to Mr. Brown, we've talked to Mr. Hammond, we presented the petition. There's none of our concerns being met here. All we've been told is they cannot enforce the PUD. They don't have the personnel. Too bad, so sad. Maybe you can have a handy way at the end of your road. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Rebuttal. Mrs. Locke.
That petition that I handed to her, I gave that petition to Mr. Brown. So he knew we had a problem out there before this PUD was amended. And no one was called. No one got to come in and sit and have a discussion. In fact, like I said before, just in this current PUD, they finally mentioned that we exist out on the west side of County Road 310. So I just want to clarify that.
I have to ask at this point, Ms. Locke, are you familiar with the current regulations and rules with the notice of intent for a PUD? You saw the bright green signs on the property? Okay. Mr. Hammonds, if you want to elaborate further on what our obligation is towards those rules and notices, it would be good for this hearing right now.
Specifically, our codes require that on any of our public hearings, we notify everybody within 300 feet of the property lines. That's for any use, no matter how big the property, we go out 300 feet. We do not go further because, again, that would cover some pretty hefty areas, and when we do large areas like this one, it can take a lot of signs and a lot of time. But our code requires 300 feet. We do notify everybody within that area.
And what, in the notification process, what's it intake? Signs, letters, phone calls?
The 300 feet is a direct notification by letter to all persons, the property owner of record of that property within 300 feet. We also publish a legal advertisement at least 2 weeks. I think it's usually more like 3 or 4 weeks prior to the hearing. In the case of a rezoning like this one, we did so 3 or 4 weeks prior to the Planning Commission, notifying of both Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners hearings. We also place the signs, and the signs are, every 200 feet or every 250 feet along the property line roadways.
And these procedures are established by who?
These are specifically in our code.
The county?
Yes.
Rules.
Can we all agree that the noise from these ATVs and these mud trucks, I don't care if the mud trucks are down in the pit, we can still hear the mud trucks. We can hear the airboats. Okay, we're not 300 feet from the residence. We're about a mile, almost a mile from the hog waller. It's loud. And the ATVs are loud. In volumes, when there's over 500 of them out there riding, and sometimes there's more than that, that sound, it penetrates. I mean, we can't even hear some of the residents that live on 310 can't even hear their TVs in their homes. And we have to, during the fall, especially when the big events are going on, we have to shut our doors and turn on our air conditioners when we'd like to open our windows and doors, and we just don't want to hear the noise. We have to, find a way. I'm going to get earplugs. I'm going to have to learn to sleep with earplugs in my ears, I guess. Xanax helps, let me tell you. I mean, I can go there. But we all have to agree this noise is loud. And I don't know when all these rules and regulations and buffers and all this noise from these ATVs are a lot louder than amplified sound. I would much rather listen to country music being played very, very loud than these ATVs at night. Now, I don't understand why they can't ride from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock p.m. Why do you have to ride after 11 o'clock all the way into the morning? It makes no sense. I mean, if there was 2 of them out there, I mean, just think if you had a mouse in your wall in your house and you heard it and you thought, oh God, this mouse is going to drive me crazy, but you could probably get to sleep for the next day so you could run out tomorrow and go buy a trap. But what if you had 500 mouses in your wall? You think you'd sleep? I don't think so. And this is the problem. Noise and volume carries. It's loud. It's just all there is to it. The further you get away from it, a little bit less it bothers you. The closer you are, the more it bothers you. Why should we have to listen to that? From 8 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m., 8 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. on 365 days out of the year. Why? Why can't they ride from 8 to 6? It does. The state has rules and regulations for riding on state property. I mean, why can't that apply out here? I just don't understand. You're going to hinder people to move out there. There's land out there for sale. You're going to hinder people from moving out there. And if we sold our property, what if somebody bought our property and that's what they want to do? Ride ATVs. So they can ride ATVs on our property. They can ride ATVs up and down Rodman Lane. They can ride their ATV on the shoulder of County Road 310 to the Hogwaller and ride.
That's illegal, Ms. Locke.
But they do it.
Well, it's still outside the scope of this hearing.
We don't have, I understand that, but there's no law enforcement out there to enforce it.
We're going to see if we can step that up.
But we're generating a problem is what I'm saying. If we let people ride to 11 o'clock and closed the gates for entry at 11, if we let people ride to 6 o'clock a.m. during the weekday, that would give us a quiet time. That's all we're asking for is a quiet time during these events and during daily riding. I don't see why that's hard to do. I just don't understand. I mean, why do we want to listen to this all night long? And then you've got trucks coming and going out of the entry gates because they're open 24 hours during the events. That goes on all night long. And these trucks are loud. The trucks that haul the ATVs there, the trucks that are going there to ride in the mud, they all have aftermarket vehicle, those sound things on them. I don't know what they're called. And it just generates noise. I mean, we hear it at 2 o'clock in the morning, you hear it at 1 o'clock. I mean, it's all night long. I mean, if it stopped at 11, they would be gone. We could go to sleep. We could wake up the next morning and feel rested. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask Ms. Locke a question for clarification for the record. The petition that you presented at a prior meeting and then also provide the clerk today, if you could just state for the record what the request is in the petition.
We're requesting that the 24-hour events stop. We want them to end. We want a quiet time.
Wasn't the petition to revoke the PUD?
No, it was a nuisance. A petition to abate a nuisance is what it was for the 24-hour events. That's it. We're not saying he can't have a business. We're not saying we don't want that kind of a business out there.
So this petition is different from the prior one?
No, it's the same one. It's to abate a nuisance from the 24-hour activity at the Hogwaller. That's it. We don't care if they're out there. We don't care if they're riding. We just want a quiet time. We want to enjoy our lives as well while this business operates. That's it. We're not saying close it down. We're not saying you can't have thousands of people out there riding. We're just asking it to stop at a decent time in the evening. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Locke. Mr. Manning, what did you find there? Anything?
Well, yes, the wording on the petition is, we, the underside, as nearby residents to the Hogwaller, hereby request the Putnam County Commission take all reasonable measures to abate the nuisances resulting to 24 hours activities at that site. However, you did in the past in our discussions request that the PUD you stated you were asking that the PUD be revoked.
When he was non-compliant, yes.
Okay.
His PUD has been non-compliant since 2010, as far as we know, up until now. At one commission meeting, he admitted he didn't have a license from the state to even run the campground. So he'd been operating out there all this time without a license from the state. So that's like a unlicensed campground?
This amendment, let's remind ourselves, is to get compliant.
Yes.
Okay.
And
we can all agree on that.
Yes.
All right.
But with our complaints that the county already knew, to us it feels like no one's listening to us. Like we don't have a voice.
You do have a voice. We
Yeah,
are
right
listening.
now.
We're here.
I'm fighting for it. Believe you me, I don't want to move from my beautiful home I've worked hard for. My husband and I have worked out there for 30 years. We have a home out there.
Okay, Mrs. Lott, we'll work.
I want to move.
Okay. No, ma'am, my question is not to you. Thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, my question would go back to the applicant. Since, the discussion, we understand the camping is around the clock, 365 days a year. I don't think anybody would have an issue per se with that. But is the applicant at least willing, with the ATV riding, to be somewhat considered in having, I'm going to call it QT, quiet time, at some point, whether it's 1 a.m. or something between 1 and 8 or something there, just in good faith to work out there. I mean, if it's a 5 hour, 6 hour, just like with the alcohol ordinance, it ought to be a little bit of a gap in my estimation, and unless I'm missing something. And again, I'm just asking at least for.
Well, I'd like to comment in the old PUD or the existing PUD, were there speed limits, 5 mile an hour speed limits for transportation? We discussed that earlier in these quiet times, wee hours.
No.
Or is this an add-on?
This it's an additional criteria
to try to mitigate.
Correct.
What Mr. Flagg is describing here. Go ahead, Mr. Leary.
Well, I think that it's important to note that, again, as part of the business model, one of the allures or one of the attractions to this facility, like many others around the southeast, is that the 24-hour riding. And there's not 500 people out there riding 24 hours a day. There are riders, but that is something that some people just like to ride at that time of night. I mean, that's just, and so we're providing that service for 24 events per year. And realistically, that's really not that much time, because the non-event time frames are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Commissioners? Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leary, how does the deputy monitor at the gate who comes in? And my question is this. If ATVs are coming down 310 to go to that gate and the deputy's standing there, he knows they're not on a trailer. He knows that. What is the deputy's responsibility at that gate to say, how did you get here? And if you came down 310, I'm going to write you a ticket.
Well,
because you didn't come in on a truck and trailer.
The deputies are working for us at that time. They're not working for the sheriff's department. So I guess you could call the sheriff's department and alert them of that.
Mr. Leary, because based on the planning commission stuff, one of the testimonies was that excuse me, I'll let y'all have your sidebar.
Yeah, my client pointed out to me, they're not standing at the gate. They're working inside the property, which is 1,200 acres. If that occurred, they certainly would have the ability, I'm assuming, to contact, an on-duty sheriff and have those people given a ticket. The other thing on the gate, let me point out that after 10 p.m. at night, we have less than 5 or 6 vehicles that come into the property. People travel from all over the southeast to come in there. And for emergency services, we can't shut and lock people in. I mean, the gate has to be open.
I don't have any issues, Mr. Chairman, at all with the gate being open 24 hours, but I do believe that if there is 24-hour activity, even if it's a 3-day weekend, something has to give.
My other question is, a lot of campgrounds do have quiet time. You know, they have a time set that at this 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, you know, it's quiet time. And that's to provide a better service for their campers there. I can't imagine I'd want to camp out there and hear 500 or even 50 or 5 ATVs running up and down while I'm trying to sleep, because I'm trying to get rested for my next day of mud bogging.
Again, that's one of the allures of the property and of the benefits of being able to be there. And you know, the reason that and let me clarify also for the record, everything we're doing out there now is all in compliance. We haven't expanded the camp sites. We're working. We have our health department permit. Any expansion, as the staff said, will require us to meet all their, you know, health and safety, sanitary requirements, which we plan to do. You know, this is a process that's going to occur over the next several years. It's not going to happen tomorrow. There's not going to be all these campsites there. And so we're gradually, you know, improving the property and making these things accessible as the demand requires. And there is a demand for it.
Mr. Leary, I don't want my questions to sound like I'm being adversarial here. I appreciate business models that change and business owners that have to change with the times. This was a unique thing when it started. It has gotten bigger than I think the applicant has even in his own mind thought of. But with that comes more responsibility. And just like we were just talking about, just the people alone being notified 300 feet, with something this unique in land development code, maybe our responsibility should expand those borders a little better for these unique situations. And I do applaud Mr. Alford for the work that he's done. But again, the citizens need a voice. And if they happen to put a petition out there that they weren't heard from our planning department, and it sounds like it wasn't, then they didn't really get the voice. And Mr. Lear, I go back to the time when the Boy Scout director, Jack Sears, stood here and said, we want to work with our neighbors. We're going to take it all away from you. We're going back to the table, and we're going to work with our neighbors. I was at the groundbreaking of the new water park, and the neighbors were there. And they won some, and they lost some. But they got together and decided what was good for the neighborhood and not just for one thing.
Well, Commissioner, let me tell you, and I'm not trying to be adversarial either, but every PUD, every zoning, every land use change has different nuances to it. The St. John's Shipbuilding PUD, which I was a part of, the reason that there's 125 jobs there today is because of my work with the then County Commission in getting the PUD approved. They run 24 hours a day. There's residences all around them. They try to mitigate and do what they can, but those residents understand that that is such an important economic driver that that's what they need. Again, we have met or exceeded every criteria that you as a county commission have in your land development code and your comprehensive plan. You know, we're providing a recreational opportunity. Is there noise? Yes. Are we trying to mitigate that? We are. There's 1,200 acres. Most of those riders are not riding on the west side of the property. They're in the north and the northeast corridor on those trails in the woods. I mean, this is, you know, it's a silviculture operation out there.
The sheriff's deputies that you have on duty at night are responsible for the proposed speed limit on these ATVs? Because I know that they're going to be, it's so spread out that they need the ATVs to go to the shower facilities or to wherever in there. If they arrive at 12 o'clock from Alabama or somewhere, they're going to need to use these. But is it going to be enforced by the sheriff's office or
And
the
by our
private
staff.
duty officers.
And on our staff.
I think
we
that
have out
answers
there.
the question.
Yep.
The concerns right now with Commissioner Flagg and Harvey, and I think the others, are the noise at night. But somehow that has to be controlled. I know we have night rides out there into the late night swamp rides, but they go to the northeast, away from the population, and they're very slow. And they're, because the terrain that they're crossing, you should be describing this stuff, Skeet, but I think that you're addressing it, and I'm trying to make my fellow commissioners realize that this has been thought of.
Well,
but if they're running loose at 1 o'clock in the morning, in the southwest or the south, it's a problem.
Well, and the camping area
Lots
is
are
that
gonna hear
way.
it,
So
we
we monitor that. We will be monitoring that with both our sheriff's deputies and our on-site staff. We have 4 or 5 people that are on the premises, dealing with sanitary issues, picking up garbage, making sure everything's clean. So yeah, we have a combined presence.
Mr. Lear, is it possible to have stronger wording guaranteeing the quadrant that they can be operated in and the speed limits within the camping or amenity?
Well, the speed limits are in.
Yes, that's
in
mentioned
compliance.
already.
So
enforcement, if it could be mentioned, so the neighbors have more control, because the PUD is a planned unit development. It's planned by the neighbors, the operator. It has to be a consensus amongst these people that they have safeguards. If the rules are being broken, they can get enforced without having to spend a lot of time at it. We do have to balance it. That's what I'm trying to do. Is that possible?
Understand.
And I think that's the hanging point at this deal. Can we be guaranteed that those officers can control that speed limit? Mr. Flagg, does that work?
Yes, sir. I guess what
I got you, Nancy.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, while they are having the discussion, I guess I'm saying pretty much the same thing. Is there a way for, I'm going to say after midnight, to have, I would call it a no-fly zone or a no-ride zone, since you have as many acres as you have, the areas that during the night that do border on that west side, is one of these little A, B, C, D, or whatever these sections is on that map, is there a way that you can kind of steer the customers away from the area that would provide the most challenge for you? Is that asking too much?
Skeet Alford again. How you doing? I'm going to try to address, since you've never been there, it's kind of hard to understand exactly what it's like. I understand that. And so I'm going to try to explain what happened. Generally what happens is that when we shut down the mud hole around on the event weekends now, and we got to remember, we're just talking about event weekends now when we're riding 24 hours a day. Basically at 5:30, the mud hole shuts down, okay? So then they get on, a lot of people, they go take a shower, get cleaned up. A lot of them don't have four-wheelers to ride. Most of the folks there don't have four-wheelers. They share them or whatever. There's only, probably 400 or 500 at the most actual units. Sometimes I've seen more than that on the real big weekends. But on a normal weekend, sometimes there's only 300 or 400 units there. So they shut down at night. And I'm going to try to explain, here's what normally happens. They take their shower, and then some of them will get on their four-wheelers and want to ride later on that night. That's part of the appeal of our place. There's another place, Mud Muckers, allows 24 hours, and there's several in Georgia. Some don't, some do. On state land you can't, but that's part of the appeal of our park, is why we've been successful, because we allow the 24 hours. Because it's just something people like to do, like I think he explained before. It's why some people like to play tennis, some people like to, golf. It's just something that they do for recreation. It's a recreational activity. They like to go do this at night. So they come and ride. Generally by about 10:30, 11, or 12 o'clock, most of them are going to their campground. I think Mr. Harvey said, you go to camp when they have a quiet time. These people come to us on purpose. They're not, if they wanted to go to a campground where there was a quiet time, believe me, they would not be at our, understand? I mean, they come to us on purpose. In other words, they have an option of leaving. If it was something they didn't like, they would not be there, I promise you, because we have customers that have not come back. We have talked to them. They said, we want more camping. You're really not a campground, you're an ATV park. And that's what we are, is an ATV park. So they come and they ride. Generally by about 1:30, 12 o'clock, 1:30, 99% of them are done. There are probably less than, because our deputies report to us, because the first thing I ask when I get there first thing in the morning, because when I go home and, I'd stay till late, and then when I go home, the first thing I ask, how was it? Were they riding? Were they all over all night? And generally, there's only generally about, at the most, 20 or 30 of these guys that ride all night long. Very few of them. But there are those ones that do it. Most of them just come in, they'll ride till around midnight or 11 o'clock. They go to their campground, get in their camper, and go to sleep. And that's what generally happens. There are some that like to ride all night, and we get those folks. And most of them we found are folks from out of town. We have big groups from Miami, from Tampa, from Georgia. We get them. We have, I know, 3 big groups from Miami that come up here regularly. Drive past parks in central part of Florida, because we are a family-friendly, no matter what somebody tells you. We are the most family-friendly that you can go ask them all. We are the most family-friendly one that, as far as the way we enforce our time and we don't allow, if someone does get belligerent or get drunk or something like that, our cops do not put up with this stuff, okay? We kick them out and don't trespass them. They don't get to come back. We don't put up with it if someone is bad. So, and generally, so what I'm saying, through the night, it's not like there's hundreds of them riding all night. Because sometimes when I get there in the morning at around 6 o'clock, there's nobody. It's quiet as a mouse. I know that there's been no one riding for the last 2 or 3 hours sometimes. I ask them, because that's the first thing I ask my deputies. I said, how were they last night? Did people ride all night? And they generally give me an idea of how many. Yes, there are going to be some, and they do ride, but it's not like there's hundreds of them all night long. And like I said, there's 1,200 acres. I have went over there. I go and I bought a decibel meter, and I go over there, sit. Sometimes I'll go out over there around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and sit on the side by the west side by Red Fox Lane. And the most people I've ever had come by me over there is 3. I've sat there an hour sitting, and the most I've ever had ride by me on the west side is 3 people. Most of the time, everybody's over in what we call the sand pit area, which is over in the central area of the park in the north and on the east side. That's where 95% of the people ride. Every now and then, somebody will take a long ride around, and they'll come on the west side, but it's very, very few. Yes,
but can't you use like signage to steer them away from it?
I can't. But Carl, they get out there and they don't know where they are. Sometimes, I'll be honest with you, you're on 1,200 acres and you're not familiar with it. You're just riding around. You see a trail and you just go down the trail. You don't know if you're going east or west, or they're just having fun. They're just riding. So it would be so hard to. I mean, it sounds good, but technically it would be just about, impossible without putting up some type of barrier, a fence or something like that, and then that's a danger. We don't like fences. We just put up the new fence, for the 75 foot, and we have to use American wire. We don't use barbed wire because I don't want people riding and getting hurt. We think safety, and so a fence in the middle of the property would just be really, really dangerous. So,
Mr. Crawford,
yes.
What about some signage that said these trails closed after whatever time frame?
You'd have to look and see. There are literally trails everywhere. It sounds. I would, because the trails interlock. There are literally probably 50, 60 miles of trails easy. What I'm saying, and they all interchange. And you go on this one and they hook up. It's just a a maze of trails.
I was just thinking about some.
Hold on, Commissioner Harris was next. I'm sorry. We're jumping turn here. Commissioner Harris.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to clarify the comment by Mr. Locke earlier about that this is an increase, not a decrease. He said that it mentioned like with, let's see, not to exceed 30 calendar days.
I
for
think
these
that,
special
I'm pretty sure that
events.
was in the first PUD that we did.
Okay.
In the original one in, what year was, time flies
2008.
anymore. And that was, when we first started this, and be honest with you, y'all, you know, when we first started this, we were treading new ground. We did not know that this thing would be this popular, be honest with you, and we thought that was enough. Obviously, we have grown, we've been successful, and yes, the days are the days that, I mean, we're not trying to hide anything or make it seem like anything. These are the days we need to be open to make it as a successful business. I don't know about, when we first started, we never dreamed that, I'll be honest with you, we never dreamed it would be this successful and draw the people it draws, but it does, I promise you.
Well, I guess what I want to know is, when did that change? Did it change at one of the other times when you came before us, or is it something that is part of this change that we're making a decision on?
This change, there was some, the original PUD and subsequent changes was not real clear. What we're trying to do here is to definitely define what an event is, because the event did talk about weekend. In the original PUD did talk about weekends and holidays, 24-hour-a-day ATV riding, and I believe Mr. Locke's correct. If I remember right, it did say a maximum of 30 calendar days per year. There was always some discussion since I've been here regarding whether the day was 24 or 12 hours, and we even had some discussion at the first PUD meeting as to what the exact definition was, and that's why we've attempted to solidify the definition in this present PUD. I know that isn't a clear answer to your question, because it was written originally fairly nebulously. I mean, trying to interpret it as staff, when I first got here and looking at it, I was going, geez, it's questionable as to what this really means. And I know the applicant had an interpretation, we had an interpretation, neighbors had a different interpretation, and so we've tried to nail it down in this, and it is different than what it was. It may be more, but it doesn't include where some of the confusion originally is. It included holidays, and so how do you include those holidays in with weekends? And how many days does that truly count as?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown.
So the answer is, we don't know.
I go back to the original. I mean, the original PUD did have a maximum of 30 days for 24-hour events. It did.
And whether it changed from the original to now, we don't know.
Yeah,
so we may be approving an extension of time at this meeting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me as staff, my interpretation today, standing here, I think we probably are increasing the overall number of days based on 24 hours going from Friday for the events, from Friday at 8 to Sunday at 8, than from what was in the original.
Mr. Chairman,
I can read you the original language, Commissioner Harrison. Here's what it says. The number of events shall not exceed 2 per month per calendar year and shall be held on weekends or holidays. So we've cut out the holidays. There's no event on a holiday, so it'd only be the 8 to 8 riding if there were ATVs there. So essentially, we have clarified it and limited it more because it was certainly more ambiguous in previous PUDs that were approved by the county. So this is much clearer and much more restrictive.
Mr. Manning.
To clarify, that's the current language.
That's the current language,
The
correct.
original language. It had changed from the original language, but what he read is the current language.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if a holiday fall on a weekend, you're not having anything that weekend?
I'm sorry?
If a holiday falls on a weekend, there will be no event.
Unless it was.
That was my question. Thanksgiving weekend?
Thanksgiving we ride, on the regular days, but it's only the 8 to 8.
No major event.
Right.
Major event, well, I think there needs to be some clarity on what an event is again and what regular business hours are.
Well, I think we've got that in here. I think
We
that's
do,
just-
but it's
yeah.
getting lost in the conversation.
Well,
I think if I can clarify, that would be, I mean, if it falls on a weekend, it's still a weekend, so they could have an event if it's a holiday. Now, if the holiday was on a Thursday, that would not be included in their definition here of when they could hold an event.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, just
Go
one
ahead,
more thing.
Commissioner Harris.
If you wanted to designate an area where there's residential property owners, couldn't you do something with flags or balloons, helium balloons that are a certain color?
Well,
So you don't have a fence, but to show that it's a residential area and after midnight to quieten the noise. Isn't there a way to work that
Yeah,
out?
it's really, and it's unfortunate y'all hadn't had the opportunity to come out there and see the property, because if you look at it, when you're on 1,200 acres and you've got 50 trails going 50 different ways, it's almost impossible to do that demarcation. What we have done is a 75-foot, and we're building the berm on that side. And so we think that's going to more than adequately address the few ATVs that would be riding at those time frames that would be after even, 11 o'clock.
All right, Commissioners, we've been at this about 2 hours. Let's
time to wrap it up.
let's
My
put it-
question is,
put it on the
since
pedal.
the berm is optional, is it necessary to make it a requirement?
Based on the performance of the offers, I don't feel it's should be a requirement. If they have done what they've said,
But
from
they
the
may sell
get-go.
it. They can sell it in the future. I mean, I'm just wondering, thinking out loud.
Okay, well, no, that's good. I mean, let's discuss it. Did you understand the question?
I did not.
Mr.
I'm sorry. Could you
Go
repeat
ahead, Commissioner Flagg.
Just for perpetuity, we're wondering, because you mentioned earlier that obviously the berm is just something that you're doing out of the goodness of your heart. And I'm wondering whether or not for perpetuity, is that something that we all should consider as something to be a part of the PUD, even though it's not a mandate for future owners?
Yeah, we can do it.
There we go.
You want to include that in the language and the appropriate item here, that'd be amenable to us.
Okay, thank you.
I think that will give all concerned peace of mind. Again, you're not on trial. We know the offers. We know you, and we respect the business model, and we need to move us forward. But thank
You
you.
bring up a good point. It could change hands.
Just a thought, Mr. Leary, maybe, and I guess, do y'all give out a brochure or a handout or anything that gives them some idea of what, because it says the western side of the park is closed
after 8 o'clock. We can do
whatever
that.
time. Something, just.
We'll do that.
The more information you can put out there to your riders and let them know, this side of the park is off limits after X amount of time.
And we can just add by motion, Mr. Chairman, I think in item number 8, the berm.
All we can do is discourage them. I can't say it's off limits because I can't be out there 24 hours a day, at night trying to.
No, we understand that.
I understand that.
Just
So
everything we can do.
discourage. We can say, hey, please stay. And like I said,
Voluntary
it's actually
compliance.
very few go over there anyway because it's the high part. It's not the muddy part. Very few go over there anyway. So, to be honest with you,
Just getting the word out may
Yeah.
cover the whole
we
situation.
can encourage those folks to stay away from the western side at night.
And we can include that language in any materials we give to people coming into the park.
And staff's noting this as we go, the changes. What we're discussing here as far as changes will be reflected in the final
Right.
agreement. Okay.
Are we
Anybody
voting
else?
on the
Yeah. You have something else, Mrs. Locke? Come on. We're getting ready to wrap this up. Yeah, come to the microphone, please.
Why can't there be an attendant at the gate? The gate is open to go in and out 24 hours. At the entrance gate? Yes. When? Why are there ATVs riding in there then?
Let
And you're not
them
stopping?
handle that.
Into the entry
We
gate,
already
to
said
the
it would be
gate
increased
going
law
into the
enforcement,
Hog Walker.
monitoring that. They have their business model, they got gatekeepers, it's there. Let's not get into any deeper weeds than what we're in.
And what about if there's a fire in there? We only see one entrance of people going into the park. Now, what if there's a fire in there? How are they going to get out?
You see,
But are they open? Then why aren't some of the other residents using those gates to get in at the other end?
Point of order, please. We kind of.
Mrs. Locke, we have to stay within the perimeters of
Like I
what
said,
we're
if we
discussing
were
today.
involved in this PUD, we have a lot of questions. There's a lot of things we could resolve. If someone would put us in a workshop with this PUD and let us have a voice, and I don't think y'all are going to do that.
Ms. Locke, they
That's what we need
followed
to
all
do.
the rules and regulations. They've done the proper signage. We've been over that. I'm sorry, but that's that. Okay, anybody else? We're going to wrap up this part. Yes, Mr. Manning, get us on course.
If the rebuttal session is complete, then that would be the appropriate time for the
Video. Thank you,
general
sir.
public input, which could include that video. I see what the problem is.
It works a lot better when it's plugged in. Okay.
Northeast 127th Place, Anthony, Florida, 32617. I just want to state that we've been coming to Hogwaller here for a few years. We usually bring our friends, our family. We always bring either a fifth wheel, a horse trailer, something to camp. We enjoy the facilities of having a full hookup, water. We love the trails. It's safe, something for us to do with our family that's inexpensive. We enjoy the land of Florida. We get to see the wildlife. We like watching the races. I would like to see maybe more full hookups come in. Usually once we come in on a weekend, we don't usually leave until the weekend's over. I just think that it's a nice place to come.
Hello, I'm Steve Zink. I live in Bushnell, Florida. 5322 WC48 33512. We come here several times a year. We just love this place. It's just so great. We own a trucking company in Bushnell, and we bring the family. I bring a lot of the employees every chance we get, and we travel all over the U.S. And one thing about Hogwaller is their bathrooms are the cleanest bathrooms out of every place we've ever been, and just the whole environment here is so friendly. You know, these people are just great people. You know, they're just like family when you get here.
My name's Calvin Ross. I live at 4248 Northwest 13th Terrace in Gainesville, Florida. I found out about Hogwaller 14 months ago. I've been coming out here ever since, and I think I've missed 3 opening days since I found out about it. The reason I like coming out here is a fun place to ride. The people that work out here and run the facilities are very friendly. You got different kind of riding. You got dry riding, you got mud riding, just atmosphere. The camping is like half the fun of it. And I met so many new people and met new friendships, and I just love coming out here. Thank you.
Richard Mullen from Tampa, Florida.
I live at 10707 Gallup Place. We've been coming up here for about 2.5 years now. We come about every 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes more often. We really like this place because it's more of a family atmosphere than some of the other places we've been. All the people seem to be really nice. They really seem to take care of the facilities, and we like the police presence that they have here. Every weekend keeps things under control, makes it so there's not all the craziness and stuff that goes on in a lot of other places. So we really enjoy coming up here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cadle. All right. Anything else from you, Mr. Manning? We're good. We'll go into deliberation here.
That's
Okay,
good.
Commissioners. Start on my.
Did we open it up for the public if anybody else wanted to speak out?
We're done with public. We're into commissioner
Well,
deliberation.
I mean, if there is any more other
Now, let's-
public, they can,
This is.
non-interested
Yeah,
persons.
yeah, we did. All right. I've got to move it along. We'll start with you, Mr. Harvey. Deliberations.
Mr. Chairman, most of my questions have been answered, and I do want to say that I support businesses. I wish that the applicant and the landowners could get together and sit down, but that doesn't look like that's going to be the will. I would like to see us in our PUD define the west side of the property to close those trails at night and try to move those to the north part where there's nobody living at. I'd like to see that. I'd also like to see the 6-foot berm around any residential areas. And I do want to draw your attention on page 113. I think this is important, and I don't want to be misunderstood here to Mr. Alford, because this could change hands one day and become somebody else's venue. It has been noted that the PUD, the current one, and the one before that, and some of the other ones probably have never been in compliance. And we need to protect the people in the future also. So item C says if the applicant violates conditions of the PUD ordinance, then the Board of County Commissioners may, in accordance with due process, schedule the property. I'd like to see us put a little bit more language in that we would visit that. If somebody buys it from a different area, comes in, doesn't comply with the PUD, we're saying, well, we might see you here, but we might not either. And I think that's important to give our residents a little bit more voice in the matter at that process. So I would like to ask the attorney if he could, if it's the will of the board, to look at some stronger language that would protect those if this ever went into the future to another landowner or the current one, and help the residents get some satisfaction there.
Well, if it's, certainly I can, if that's the will of the board and what you all vote, we could certainly change that to, if the applicant violates conditions of the PUD ordinance, then the Board of County Commissioners shall, in accordance with due process, schedule the property for public hearing for revocation of the PUD. We could certainly do that. That would be tying the hands of future commissions, so.
What's involved in that change, Mr. Manning?
Well, it would be part of your motion that here, if your motion were to approve the changes, would outline whatever additional changes you want to see.
Doesn't require additional hearings or future meetings?
No.
No. Okay, that's my question, that's all. I can support that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's fine.
If I may interject one issue on that discussion. If a PUD is in violation, the normal process we take them through is this process anyway. So what we are generally proposing to you then, the applicant is proposing to you, an amendment to their PUD that will bring them into compliance rather than considering the revocation issue. Revocation is somewhat extreme, and that's usually when things have completely fallen apart and there's no fixing it. But that's what this is here for today, was to bring them back into compliance. We have a code case against them. We have an order against them that gives them 90 days from the special magistrate in July to come into compliance. Well, this is their means of coming into compliance.
So, Mr. Chairman, just piggyback off of what the director is saying. So should this language include, for the benefit and the protection of all concerned, compliance or revocation there? Because, again, if the applicant or if the existing owner is bringing it in compliance, then the public hearing is giving the commission an opportunity to hear what was out of compliance and how it is now in compliance versus just solo having it for revocation purposes.
Well, that certainly gives you, or future commissions, obviously much more flexibility than tying their hands, saying you're going to have a hearing to revoke this PUD because there's a finding of some sort of non-compliance. You know, somebody rode over 5 miles an hour one night on the way to the bathroom because they drank too much beer. That would technically be a violation of the PUD, and you're, by making that change, you'd be requiring the commission to move on revocation of the PUD.
Which I don't support.
Right. So I think that compliance and or revocation, so they would know that the hearing would happen either way, preferably a compliance hearing versus a revocation hearing. So I think if both are in there, that should.
Good point.
I agree. Could you, how could we word that, Mr. Manning?
Well, just like Commissioner Flagg just stated it, I do believe.
I won't charge you for that.
So you wanted to say shall?
Shall's fine.
But a compliance hearing is typically held, that's a code enforcement matter.
It is.
Which is, staff brings code enforcement, and that goes before the magistrate. Seems to me you're kind of doing an end around of your code enforcement at that, and you're saying for these folks, instead of regular code enforcement, they need to come back before this board for any potential violations.
So does the current code enforcement ordinance cover the issues that could possibly come up in a PUD? That's the question.
Well, Mr. Hammonds can answer that, but I would believe so.
It may be a PUD violation,
That's
but not
how
a code
this started.
violation.
Your code enforcement board can hear basically any county ordinance. Some things that are not even in the LDC are considered by codes, like our utility ordinances. When somebody cuts loose of their water or sewer in violation of our ordinances, we run them through code enforcement. So yes, anything can be prosecuted under code enforcement, any of your ordinances.
And Mr. Locke, I know what you're thinking. We don't usually have this low levels of code enforcement employees. We are beefing that department up. It has been historically, well, not historically, but lately low. But with the new budget year, we'll have more officers.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the language that the attorney and planning agreed to, so that we are not contradicting process for code enforcement. But what we want at the end of the day is voluntary compliance. That's right. Anyway. That's right. So we're not trying to throw any shade on anybody as it relates to a revocation. So I think that when we say compliance, that compliance may very well mean that that they've had to go through code enforcement there, and if it comes only as a recommendation, it's still a hearing. If we're getting a recommendation from the magistrate or a recommendation from staff, and so I still think that compliance gives us, does not take away.
If I might, I mean, the language that's in here now is already giving the board kind of some additional authority and direction to the applicant or the owners, whoever they may be in the future. I mean, the codes as written currently, as I said, they're going to come before code enforcement. Code enforcement officers have the ability to go there and write the citations and bring them before all the processes. So those processes are there. This is just an addition, saying, okay, well, in addition to all of those processes, when there is violations of the PUD ordinance, then this Board of County Commissioners can consider revocation of the PUD, and I really don't know that it would be a good idea to expand upon that, to have any further requirements than what the county has in general for processing ordinance violations.
Yeah, I completely agree that what we have is adequate, and code enforcement stands separate from this process.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, one last argument. I'm talking about future people that could be owning it, that don't have stake here in Putnam County. This property has not been in compliance for a long time because of the growth and the different things that have been going on. The due process, the people feel like they've been not allowed due process. So I was just trying to offer some type of process where the citizens could feel more ownership in this at that point. They've been through the codes. They've been through the special magistrate. They've been through this. What's to say that the offers don't sell it to somebody else, and this could get even bigger and bigger by the time it gets to it? That's all I was trying to get.
And I understand, but it's difficult because you've got, the applicant, the property owner, is the party here, and that, when you're talking about due process, it's the party that are entitled to due process, and I know that sounds harsh, but they're the ones that have to have those due process rights protected, and if you're talking about requiring involvement from third parties, I think you're getting into a little bit dangerous territory. But that being said, that's why we have the notice requirements that the code has, and you could certainly look in the future in expanding those notice requirements if you wish. But that's really where the surrounding property owners, get their voice as they receive that notice, and they have an opportunity to attend those hearings, which I know, the Locks have been at both the Planning Commission hearings. So they've been involved, which is good. So the process is working.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Pelsier, I think we're on you.
Finally?
Yeah.
I think I heard Ms. Locke say that she did not want to hinder the offered's ability to do business or to have a money-making venture out there. Although both parties need to work together, and I would have liked to have seen them maybe sit down at the table and have a little more give and take of what each party was willing to give and to take. I think the offers, have followed the PUD or conforming to the PUD, and I would like to see really some more verbiage in your brochure and any way that you could possibly let them know through any means possible that as you come in this entire west side after whatever time y'all come up with, hopefully have some dialogue with the Locks there on that hour, that that side of the park is off limits. And I think, hearing it from law enforcement and hearing it from the owner, I think you probably eliminate a lot of ones that would even chance or think they would want to go over there, just hearing it from those authorities.
Commissioner Harris.
I think we're doing what we can to soften it. I like the idea of the quiet time on the west side, and that they would print something and let people know, hey, if you enjoy coming here, let's try and make it livable for everybody. And it's good to have the 6-foot berm in writing. I guess, I don't know if it needs to be dirt that's 6 feet. Probably we need to specify if it's 4 feet, and then they have plantings above it. Trees and plants do, cut out noise. So I just want to just be sure that we clarify whichever that is, so that we don't make it too expensive, but yet workable.
All right, Commissioner Flagg.
Which is it for this particular case?
What do you prefer?
Well, we agreed earlier, Mr. Brown was noting.
Yeah, but the question that Mrs. Harris...
Mr. Brown, do we have berm requirements in our land development code that we can reference?
We have vegetative requirements for some buffers, yes. I think depending on how specific you want to get, we could either call it a 6-foot vegetative berm or we can get down to specifics as to the type of vegetation, the distance between the plants, the types of plants. We can get that specific. Our land development code does have for different buffers, has distances between trees and required minimum diameter base circumference of the trees for new plantings, for buffers, and we can get that specific if you desire. Does that answer? I hope that answers the question.
Well, let me clarify. I thought, and this is my interpretation with what I heard, did you have soil built up for 4 feet and then 6 feet? Is it a soil berm or is it a vegetative berm or half and half or what?
The berm out front is part of the original buffer. In your ordinance as it's written, and so it doesn't say how high or anything. It just says a berm, and then I'm putting plants on top to make it taller. If you want to get specific on the one against the residential side over there, I don't have a problem. You know, we can do a 6-foot earthen berm, and that would be. I will probably make it taller. I planned on. Be honest with you, I'm trying to deflect as much sound as I can. So I was going to make it taller, but that was our intention to start with. Like I say, it's not like we've been not here at all. I mean, we've heard all this, and we were just going to make it taller. But you can say a 6-foot earthen berm, and then I think that would be. Then if we make it taller, so be it.
Maybe good with everybody? A thick hedge.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, if I'm hearing correctly, and I'm looking around here, I think when it comes to the motion, I think if you wanted to include the berming requirement, it would be it's page 109 of your agenda, page 6 of 14 of the actual PUD document. Under B, conditions of allowed uses, sub 2, sub B, the designated all-terrain vehicle, ATV/UTV riding shall be a minimum of 75 feet from the property line of any property in which there is a residential use or residential structure, and there shall be a 6-foot earthen berm. I guess would it be within or inside of the 75-foot buffer?
It needs to be within that way because it's fenced off. Because I don't want the people riding on it and understand. That's why I wanted it within. That way I can.
So then
if they see a hill, they will go ride on it. So
right.
Okay.
So I think that's where it would go. Mike, did you get that?
Got it.
Okay.
And Mr. Manning, if you would, keep noting this in case we need your assistance in our motion as we craft it. Okay, Mr. Flagg, you're next.
Mr. Chairman, I rest my case. I'm prepared to make a motion unless you have comments.
My comments are just to commend both parties for coming here and trying to resolve, as well as the Planning Commission. And my hope is it's ongoing. Mr. Alford and the Locks and you, ma'am, are very friendly people. Y'all should be able to talk to each other. Please do so in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that PUD 16-002 rezoning from PUD to PUD amendment Magnolia Dunes LLC be approved with the revised conditions and amendments.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Further discussion, Mr. Manning?
To include the berm, correct?
Yes, correct.
As we just discussed. And was there any other changes that you're including in your motion?
There was one earlier.
There was one about the riding on the west side.
Well, there was discussion of that, but I think that if that's what you want to include, you're going to need to be much more specific.
They were going to put it in their materials to discourage people from doing that after, was it after 8?
Yeah, that's just an
I
agreement.
mean, any way that they could friendly, in a manner to delineate the zone. Again, with all the different passes there, it's still a point of origination where it starts splitting off, and I'm sure they're going to do that. I feel confident.
So the condition will be they discourage riding
after
in
midnight.
the western
camping facility.
It should be printed on
It
their
shouldn't say
brochures.
After 8 p.m.
after
Hang on, that's-
8 p.m.
We didn't include that earlier.
During the events or at any time.
Well, just the owner, operator, incorporate into your camping instructions that they have on arrival or signage, ever how you do it, that this is encouraged, is what I got out of the conversation earlier.
Discourage folks from riding on the western side of the property after a certain time, whatever y'all feel comfortable, though, obviously, like I say, but I can't.
Right.
All I can do is discourage, because you cannot stop them. Someone may wander over there, and I don't want to burden codes enforcement every time somebody wanders over there, a phone call generates. So we can discourage, and we will discourage them on the website and in the brochure if,
And your customers are consistent.
Yeah,
and
our customers are all friendly. They're not wild folks, they're pretty family. We got families out there.
That's the wording, is discourage.
Discourage.
And I said encourage. Discourage is what I
Okay.
meant. Okay, well, we have a motion
So
and
that's
discussion.
part of the motion.
Yeah.
All right.
Is it?
Okay.
You got that, Mike?
Yes, it's definitely part of the motion. I guess my point is, how clear is it? So we can.
That was pretty clear.
Okay. But what time did you end up with? You were saying?
I said 8 p.m., but I'm flexible.
What would you like, Mr. Alford?
I think 11 is fine.
That's what the other party had earlier, too. Peace and quiet from 11 to 7.
11 to 8. It'll kick back off at 8.
All right, is everybody comfortable with that? Commissioners? Comfortable? Staff? We're good? All right, we're going to vote. Were you good, Mr. Manning?
Do we have a second to that?
Second.
I guess we didn't have one. We do now.
Commissioner Pelletier second.
Yeah, Pelletier had second.
I thought
Seconded.
All right.
All right, we have motion and second with the language. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a second motion for the LM-16, and that's also 002 or 001, or what is it?
Two.
The first two or the
There's a
second two?
002 behind that.
Yeah.
So the LM-16 number is what?
So there's correction to that.
Is there a correction to that number?
There was from 1 to 2.
On our first item, PUD 16-001 should say PUD 16-002.
I made that correction. I'm on B, and if I use the number,
That's a separate matter.
Okay.
Okay,
The LM.
so the 16001 is correct?
Yes,
I
that's
just
the
wanted to
LM.
verify that. LM 16-001, future land use map amendment from A2 to RR, so move.
Okay, have a motion? No second?
I want to be clear on where we are.
No, you already,
B?
you voted on A, so we're done with that matter. Are we moving on to B?
But we can't make a motion without a public hearing.
Right.
I thought the public hearing covered both of them.
No.
No,
This
that
is
was just the
different
first one.
property.
That was just A.
This is up near Boswick.
Okay, you're right.
That's a different
Too
matter.
many-
Nothing
too
to
many
it. We're
16
done. We're done. In fact, with that, let's take a recess for 5 minutes, mandatory right now.
You're right. I'm thinking
We'll
that
be
it
back.
was, I thought I saw.
The numbering was confusing.
All right, before we go on break there real quick, Commissioners, what do you want to do with the rest of this meeting? You want to go on through it
Yeah.
after the break?
Let's find out, Mr. Chairman, who do we have here for these
Mr.
different
Holmes.
cases? I know Mr. Holmes is here for C and D.
Mr. Holmes? Sir, I'm sorry to disturb you. Do you want to continue on and get through with it after the break?
Oh, sure.
I do too.
I think so.
I'm at your leisure, but.
Let's
Well, we're
continue
asking.
on.
We're all want to get along here. I know it's drug on.
We got a question.
Let's continue on.
Yeah, this is a
Wanda.
second hearing. I'd like to go ahead and get that done.
Get it done.
Yes,
Yeah.
C and D first. Yes.
All right, we're on it.
No, this is not protected.
Don't need
All right, we got Mr. Manning's back. Okay, I'll reconvene the County Commission meeting, August 9th, 2016. We'll go to item LM 16-001, refer to Planning and Development. Mr.
correction.
Cadle.
Right, we're going to C and D,
Okay.
LM 16002.
I'm sorry, forgot that. Go ahead, let's do it.
Okay. So, this has been before you. We transmitted LM 16002 back in June. At any rate, this, just to kind of go into history, there was a proposed rezoning of one of the parcels out in the Cedar Creek. Oh, well, sorry, I got flipped around here. Now I'm going 16001. I apologize. All right.
Okay, which one we on?
No, I'm on 16002, but mentally I was on 16001, so I apologize about that. Let me start it over.
This is item C?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
All right. The applicant is George Anthony Hill and REO Funding Solutions. The agent is Donald Holmes. This is a future land use map amendment from agriculture to industrial. It involves 3 parcels amounting to around 29 acres. The parcels are located on Landfill Road and US 17. So this has gone before the Planning Commission in May, went before the Board of County Commissioners, and then transmitted in June. The state has reviewed it and provided comments where necessary, and now we're at the adoption hearing for LM 16002. It also has companion rezoning that we'll hear after this. If both are approved, then it'll go for preliminary review before the Development Review Committee, and then final review and concurrency analysis. Here's an aerial of the 3 subject parcels located along Landfill Road and US 17. The zoning district for the subject parcel is agriculture. There's a large amount of agricultural zoning, agriculture out there, also commercial along 17, industrial to the south, and the landfill PUD to the west. Future land use designation for the subject parcel is A2. There's a large amount of A2 out there. There's also commercial along 17, public facilities to the west, and industrial to the south. So staff summary is that the future land use map amendment is consistent and compatible with the goals, objectives, policies of the comprehensive plan. Particularly, the land use is consistent with the area, and it also meets the locational standards of the future land use category. As you can see through this aerial right here, the land use, there's the landfill to the west. You have Seminole Electric, which is located to the northeast. You have Georgia Pacific, which is located to the southwest, and then the Bargeport area, which is located to the southeast, which has a multitude of industrial uses. And there's also other industrial uses in the vicinity of the subject parcels that have not been highlighted. And then multiple modes of transportation are in proximity to the subject parcels, which is one of the requirements of the industrial future land use. US 17, which is a principal arterial, it abuts the subject parcel. You have the rail spur over in the Bargeport area, and also the waterway access over in Bargeport area, and then finally the airport, which are all in proximity to subject parcels, which satisfies these requirements. During transmittal, the state and local agencies were notified of the future land use map amendment. No comments came back. During the process of writing the staff report, staff was in communication with FDOT, and FDOT stated that US 17 does have adequate capacity to support the proposed development, looking out into the planning horizon. Therefore, staff makes a recommendation for approval of the map amendment, and will answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, any questions, Commissioners? Mr. Cadle at this point.
Yeah, we have the FDOT. We have the FDOT approval. Did we get Public Works to look at the landfill road?
Well, concurrency analysis is a part of the process for final development. So, once we start going through the development process, FDOT will be included in the discussion, and we'll have, I'm not sure what landfill road is. I don't believe it's a state facility, but if it's a state facility, FDOT has input. Landfill road is a county road, so the Public Works has comments on that, and then US 17 FDOT has comment on because it's a state facility.
I understand that. I was not referencing FDOT with landfill. I was saying Public Works. Is that a part of the process that our Public Works department will be engaged in, making sure that capacity and quality of the roadway and all of those things are?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Manning, what order do you want me to open it up for public?
Well, this is a future land use map change, so I think open it up to the applicant. Other than that, it's not a quasi-judicial. The next one will be.
Okay, Mr. Holmes. Good morning, sir.
Don Holmes on behalf of the applicants. Actually, there are two applicants, and you may recall from our previous conversations, my client, George Hill, has a pending sale contract or purchase contract from REO Funding to buy one piece, and he's already closed the sale on the other piece. That's why we have two applicants. I'm sure you recall the previous conversation and hearing. As I get older, there's a Will Rogers quote that I'm increasingly fond of, which says, "Never miss a chance to shut up." So I'm going to do that right now, unless you have questions.
Questions for Mr. Holmes?
You won't hear an attorney say that often, so mark that down.
Okay. We appreciate that. All right, so you're telling me this is not a hearing?
Well, I mean, it's a hearing. It's just not quasi-judicial, so.
Okay,
So
but I
we don't
still
have
have
ex
an
parte.
obligation to open up public comment, which I'll do at this point.
Yeah, after we heard the
We
applicant.
did it. Public comment. You get me so confused. I'm sorry. All right. Yes. Mr. Wayne, how are you today?
Pretty good for the old fat man.
I got you.
Warren Wilkinson, 100 Cow Bay Road. Morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
All right, is it afternoon now? I'm tired. I don't have any real problem with what we're doing here, but I have a lot of questions. Cow Bay Road, if anybody's been to the landfill lately, there is no landfill road anymore. It's just a matter of holes and asphalt that's been poured into the holes. This gentleman has bought all the land, or is in the process of buying all the land from the marble factory to County Landfill Road. That's 30 acres. 15 acres or so of it is wetlands, and you can't do anything. You can't even walk across it right at the moment. That's a large project. We need to know what's going to happen there. My past, I've been told he's just going to build a road from his marble factory to the County Landfill Road. This is all future problems here. You know, we need to find out what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. The other thing is the county has an easement across the middle of this thing. Now, what are we going to do there? Or will it be another negotiation somewhere along the line? But basically, I'm going to tell you I don't have a major problem with this. As long as he doesn't put a hammer mill down there by the house or a hog pen, I'm reasonably happy, or a light that shines in my bedroom.
Thank you afterward.
We appreciate it, Mr. Wilkerson.
That's about it.
All right.
Anybody else wishing public comment at this time? Hearing none. Commissioners?
I have none.
I have none. So move.
Second.
Second.
You had comment. Do you want to?
I was just going to say, as I said before, this is good. It's manufacturing, it's jobs. Let's move forward.
Amen.
Okay, and Mr. Wilkerson, I think Mr. Flagg put up the flag about the concern for the roads, that we want our Public Works Department to make sure that everything's in order there, which we will. And it'll be there. Mr. Manning, anything further?
Just a vote.
Okay, sir. All right, hearing no more conversation, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Mr. Holmes, thank you for hanging so long today.
The next, still here.
He's got one more.
Well, we have one more,
Oh,
which
that's
would be
right.
the rezoning, and this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so any ex parte communications would need to be expressed at this
On my
at this
left.
time.
None.
None.
None?
None. None.
Okay. All right, let's go, Mr.
Five
Cadle.
nones.
Clarification, what case are we hearing now?
We're back to 16-001.
Okay,
No,
thank
no,
you.
no, no.
No,
no,
we're
no,
not.
no.
Two.
D. R16002.
Oh, we're taking them separately.
D. Yeah, we're still dealing with the same
It's
case.
been a long morning. I'm sorry. You're right, Tony?
I'm with you.
1602.
Okay.
Mr. Cadle, take it.
Okay, just for brevity's sake, we've already heard some of the background information, the maps and such, so I'm just going to go over the rezoning process.
That'll be good. I'll remind everybody, as Mr. Holmes already did, it's 2 parcels. I'm the only one that didn't get it. Let's go.
Okay. So at any rate, the future land use of industrial has been adopted for the subject parcel. The planned operation and zoning district are consistent with the industrial future land use designation, in particular with the locational standards where multiple modes of transportation facilities should be in proximity to the parcels for that zoning district change, and also that they do not require a significant amount of non-residential traffic to travel through established neighborhoods. The location of the subject parcels meet those standards. The zoning district of industrial heavy is consistent with the industrial future land use, and staff recommends approval of R16002.
Okay. Any questions to staff so far? Hearing none. Open it up for the public.
The applicant.
Applicant, I'm sorry. I'm tired, I guess, y'all.
For your record, Don Holmes again for both applicants, and I'll answer questions if you have any.
What was the quote?
The quote was, never miss a chance to shut up.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Mr. Wilkerson, further comment?
Oh, Warren Wilkinson, 100 Cow Bay Road. Just the information, we keep getting forgotten out there. There is north of this County Landfill Road is basically residential. You've got 5 families plus the people on the living on the highway there. None of your reports mentioned us, but I want to get that in there, that we keep getting forgot about. Okay, thank you. Just remember us.
Anybody else from the public? We'll close that portion.
So moved.
Motion on the floor.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
Thank you for your
I will let
patience.
the attorney tell me where I'm going next. Not you, Mr. Holmes.
B.
Well, I think staff's wanting to go back up to 9B, which is case LM-16-001.
All right. Cadle, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. And I'll start talking about what I was originally talking about before. The applicant here is Putnam County. Just a brief history. We saw rezoning a while back where an individual in the Cedar Creek subdivision tried to rezone his property from R1A to agriculture because he wanted to have livestock. And there was a little consternation about that. The rezoning was denied. And staff discovered that the future land use was inconsistent with the residential subdivision that was out there. The future land use was A2, so we decided that would be a good idea to change the future land use from A2 to rural residential. The first thing we did is we had a town hall meeting over at the Boston Community Center on February 24th to discuss this with the residents of Cedar Creek subdivision and people that were surrounding there, and they agreed to that process. And then we also had 3 people join in that were outside of the Cedar Creek subdivision with the petition. So here's an aerial which shows the portion of Cedar Creek subdivision that is slated for the map amendment, and then also three parcels to the north, 2 contiguous, 1 non-contiguous, that have decided that they want to be part of the petition. The zoning district for all the parcels is R1A. The future land use of current is A2. And here's what the map would look like if the proposed change was adopted. The Board of County Commissioners voted to transmit the proposed amendment to the state and local agencies. State and local agencies did not have any comments, mainly because of the fact that it doesn't increase any density. It doesn't increase densities, and the transportation facilities are not required to change. The proposed change prevents any applicant in the future from changing the zoning district to agriculture or agricultural estate without a land use change to Agriculture 1 or Agriculture 2 in the future. The proposed amendment is consistent and compatible with the comprehensive plan. The zoning district of R1A is consistent with the proposed rural residential future land use designation, and the future land use change will not increase density. Therefore, staff recommends approval, and we'll answer any questions if you have them.
Questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Okay.
Did the 3 parcels to the north, did that make it in those transmittals that we sent out earlier?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
that's the only question I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You ready?
No, we have to, this is here, the second of a hearing, isn't it? Second hearing, final hearing.
Yes, it would be
Anybody?
the applicant, I guess, which is the county, so I don't know if there's anybody else to speak on behalf of that. If not, then it would be anybody for, anybody against, and then public comment.
Okay, anybody for? Seeing none, anybody against? Seeing none. We'll have closing
comment now?
He said let him talk, I'm always willing.
Seal. Warren. Okay, commissioners? What's your fancy?
So move.
All right.
I tried that earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to make sure we were, because
Second.
it was in-house versus, Mr. Manning's a little different from Mr. Castleberry in regards of hearing, so, and that's fine, it really is, but I'm just learning you.
Second it.
Okay, all right, further discussion, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, it carries. Mr. Manning, is that all of them?
Oh, we got one
We
more.
still have E, which is case TA-16-001.
Yes, this is a text amendment. So the applicant is Putnam County. This text amendment was to kind of smooth out some inconsistencies that we found in the comprehensive plan, mainly with commercial uses. The first is to delete the percentage of commercial use in urban service, future land use designation, urban reserve, and rural center. The second is to amend the policy of neighborhood commercial, allowing for neighborhood commercial activities to be located on paved local roads. And then the final one is to better define the neighborhood commercial. So the first proposed amendment, we're changing this in the 3 future land uses: urban service, urban reserve, and rural center. This is an example from urban service, where we slashed language that states commercial acreage in each distinct urban service area shall not exceed 25% of its total land area without a comprehensive plan amendment to designate the area as commercial future land use. The reason we did this is because we felt that the marketplace was a better way for them to decide what the appropriate percentage of commercial to residential or thereafter. And we felt that simplified things in the urban service, urban reserve, and rural center. The second proposed amendment is to allow for neighborhood commercial uses on local paved roadways. Community commercial uses would remain on collector or higher roadway classifications. The reason for this is because there's language in the comprehensive plan that states that we would try to avoid or discourage strip development. But by only allowing commercial activity on collector or higher, you're basically promoting strip pattern development. So allowing neighborhood commercial classifications on neighborhood commercial uses on paved local roads allows for these smaller neighborhood type activities to happen in appropriate venues. And that's brings us to the definition of neighborhood commercial. We better define neighborhood commercial as retail sales and services which are consistent with this type of neighborhood commercial activity. So we transmitted these proposed changes to the state. only one comment came back and was from FDOT. FDOT basically said that if max development happened on all the parcels affected by the text amendment, that would be significant impact to state facilities. However, max development is unlikely within the planning horizon. And basically thereafter said that all future changes should be coordinated and implemented with DOT, which is a standard practice through our concurrency analysis and also the way that we conduct map amendments and rezoning. So we feel that we have addressed those comments to that fashion. Staff's conclusion is that the proposed amendment is consistent and compatible with the comprehensive plan, land development code, and chapter 163 of Florida statutes, and recommends approval of the text amendments. I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Yes.
If I could just clarify for the record as well, when this first came before the board the first time around, it was referenced as, and you'll see this here in your materials, that the first time it came as a public hearing, it was TA-16-011. So it was just a numbering issue, but just to clarify for the record. Okay. This is LM 16-0.
Why all the mix-up with these?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah.
I can't answer that.
Okay. We don't need to answer that right now.
Was that on the agenda? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions? Furthermore?
So moved.
All right. Motion on the floor. It is a text amendment. Second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay. Moving on. Item 10. Appointments. Board members. Affordable housing or anything?
I have been told, I need to verify it with him, but I think I have Mr. Annis is wanting to come back, but I want to verify that. But
Mr. Chairman,
let you know I got that one
let me
working.
piggyback off of Mr. Pellicia. I do have confirmation that Mr. Annis is eligible, and certainly placing him in nomination to be reappointed at large residential home builder, also at large essential services personnel, J.R. Grimes, the current fire marshal for the city of Palatka.
Okay. On Mr. Annis, so I'm hearing to reappoint him or not? Have we heard from him directly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have not, but I was told that he did, and I was going to verify,
well.
but Mr.
All right.
Flagg has verified it, evidently.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Okay. I have been working on an at-large employer representative, and my person fell through. I understand this position is maybe changed so that they just meet once a year, so it's not going to be a big thing, but it needs to be a representative from a commercial entity looking out for employees. So I was wondering if any of you had any ideas of what company.
You want a description change?
The description did not change, but the meeting times
Oh, that has, yes.
may change. So it's not a huge responsibility
Right.
for someone to take if they would be willing. So I was just going to ask each of you if you could assist in coming up with a company.
Would a company or a person?
Person from the company.
It's an employer.
Okay.
An employer, so
Like an
it'd be a
industrial.
person.
That's what I was thinking, or are we thinking maybe the PR representative from a big company?
I asked Georgia Pacific and thought that they might, and they declined. So,
That was my thought. Carrie Hadaway.
yeah.
Well, we'll discuss that at a later time. Right now, we have.
Okay.
Yes, we have J.R. Grimes taking Mark Lenardy's spot, and a reappointment of Wayne Annis for the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. Thank you, Commissioner Flagg. Fishing fund, anybody? Seeing none, we'll move on. Parks and Recreation.
Sure district.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make mention of something. Ms. Berger, I appointed her a few months ago, and due to her college and she was not able to attend. What concerns me is this came on the agenda without going through the Parks and Recreation Board. I don't want us to get into a situation where, or if we do want to go there, keeping attendance and expiring people. We should encourage people. But Ms. Berger has already committed to going to Santa Fe College. She is going not to be on that board, and I'm in talks with another person to appoint any moment now, probably the next meeting.
Okay. So, We'll keep all that in mind. You are on the Recreation Board. If you would like to discuss the attendance requirements, that you feel free to do so, sir.
I will.
Okay. All right, moving on. Insurance Committee, I want to have a little discussion quickly from you guys. I'm not happy with the makeup I see here. I have one that I brought forward that Mr. Flagg is going to share with us in a moment. I think that this is somewhat internal and not so much external. And Mr. Flagg, if you could take it from there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, on the committee, I think when we look at the scope of the committee, I know from times past what has happened, but I don't see this as being a citizen board as much as I see this being a board where all of the various entities are represented there, because there will be consultants. HR is a consultant. The insurance agents are consultants. The administrator and deputy administrator all. I would prefer to see instead of 5 appointees from the board, either the board chair or a delegate or a quorum of board members, and I'm talking about BOCC, in addition to the 5 constitutional officers. And when they say representatives, I'd rather it be the constitutional officer or their delegate, so that if they are hemmed up and can't be in the meeting, that person still will constitute a quorum. The 2 union representatives, I have no problems with that. And then the 3 representatives from the departments, I think that those 3 representatives should be like Public Works, IT, and what was one other?
Planning and Development.
Yeah. That they should be there, and still with the overall interest of making sure that all employees, and I think that's what the aim should be, that all employees are represented. So if it's our board chair and our administrator or delegate or something on that order, rather than us getting into appointees, because at the end of the day, we'll have the necessary consultants that we need with the HR and with
from the public.
Yeah,
that's exactly. So what do you feel? It's a conversation. I just feel that like I said before, this is an internal effort and should reflect so.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I'm not aware of actually the board approving the actual enabling legislation to create the committee, and I think it would be in that legislation where you would define the purpose of the committee and the makeup of the committee. So I guess what I would suggest is maybe give some direction to staff as to what you're thinking you would like on the committee, and then it be brought back before you to vote on actually creating it and what the scope of the duties are going to be, and at that point then start looking at making appointments.
That's a good approach.
I thought, Mr. Chairman, that we were resurrecting the insurance committee. I don't think there was an official sunset.
No, and you're right in a sense, but I think that it's been so long, and nobody here, with maybe the exception of Commissioner Harris, would have any idea what it resembled before. Do you remember of the Insurance Commission meeting and your?
I do. I think it was just our commission chair sat on the insurance committee.
I believe it had representation from all the constitutional officers, either the constitutional or their delegate.
It was handled through Human Resources with Barbara shepherding it. Okay.
So I guess if maybe, I mean, if it already exists, but you're wanting to change the makeup, I still think it should be brought back for some revisions to the existing committee.
What do you think, Commissioners? We don't have the model to look at.
I think we talked about that at the workshop, and we did talk about the scope of what they're going to do. We do need to define that.
Let's revisit it.
So I would take it off of the appointment side and actually, like you say, come back. But I think we need to give the administrator and attorney kind of what the feel is for the makeup, so that when it does come, all we're doing basically is looking over the the way it's laid out. We have the scope is there, because this thing can easily become a political issue, and it's not a political issue. It's
right.
our abilities to provide benefits to those individuals who are loyal and dedicated to this county, and it's about affordability.
That's right. Okay.
You maybe want to workshop it?
Yes.
Look
If
at,
you can bring us a model, existing model, so we
and
can
then you can look
analyze.
at potential changes at that point, and then.
You agree?
And then bring actually a change markup before the board after the workshop.
That's where we'll be able to have input on appointees and all that.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
let's get that part to me dealt with today.
I want to have.
Let's find out where we stand on that, because it doesn't make sense to me. And again, whatever the majority says is fine. I don't see a need for a workshop. I see a need for.
No, we're going to bring it to a workshop.
Yeah, but we need to not come in there with different minds. My thoughts are where it says appointees from the board. I'm not in favor of us getting citizens from all over the community on that board.
You want agreement on that?
Yes, sir. I want to say that either our board chair or delegate or all 5 of us, just like we had this meeting the other day with the constitutionals. I think that was a productive meeting. I think the diversity of the board would lend itself to us having the perspectives that we need, because at the end of the day, we need to chime in on all of the issues, whether it's about the funding of it, whether it's about the benefits itself and things of that nature.
I agree with you. Let's see a quick verbal from everyone. If you agree?
I have no problem with that.
I would like to see appointees from the citizens, but if we're not going to go that direction, then it should be us board.
Okay, well, let's finish.
Excuse me, Mr. Palacier.
I'm sorry.
I would like to see appointees from the citizens, but if we're not going to do that, I'd like to see us, the board members, be there.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Harris, you good?
I'm okay either way.
All right, let's do that.
So what's the direction?
To bring it back, what we just discussed, let's see. We want either the chairman representing or the 5 of us, the 1 from each of the unions, the constitutionals.
Or their delegate.
Or their delegates.
And 3 representatives from the board.
And 3, 1 from each of the 3 departments of Public Works, Planning and Development, and IT. And all, of course, this is staffed by HR.
May I recommend that we keep our county administrator on that also?
Very well.
Is that the only change you're looking for in the committee as it was previously set up and its duties? If so, then we can bring back at our next meeting a modified ordinance. I don't know if it was established by ordinance or resolution, whichever the case, just changing the makeup of the committee, and there's no need to workshop it.
But I'm listening to Commissioner Harris, Mr. Chairman. The administrator is our consultant anyway, him and HR, right?
Right.
And HR isn't mentioned either.
Well, no, because they're not on the committee per se. They are the consultants to the
staff.
committee, is what
Oh,
I'm
I see
looking
what
at.
you mean.
Right.
Okay, fine.
But then let's settle the issue. Mr. Harvey made it plain that if we don't go the route of citizen appointees, that he would support all of us. And so I would think that to make sure that all 5 of us did not create, it wouldn't bother the quorum. The quorum would be based on everybody. So it could be any one of us could be missing and it still wouldn't hinder a quorum. I was thinking at first it had to be at least 3 of us there, but it's not a commission deal. So I just think that I would support all of us until we get through the crisis. We can modify the board later. I think that till we get through whatever we're dealing with now with insurance, all of us need to be in the loop.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
You get your answer?
No.
Okay.
I got that part, though. I see you don't want just the chair. You want...
It's established now.
All 5 of us on it. The constitutionals can be themselves or their delegate, the 2 union representatives, and the 3 representatives from the departments, from the BOCC departments.
Okay, I have that.
That's the committee, and then the administrator, deputy administrator, HR, all of those people are consultants, and even the insurance people.
Okay, so that's the only change you're looking at from what was existing previously. So we can actually bring back that at a regular commission meeting for that simple change, and that way we don't have to workshop it first. That'll give it on a more of a fast track, and at that point, then you can make appointments.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. County Administrator.
I have nothing, sir.
County Attorney.
Haven't I said enough?
You want to repeat that quote that Don Holmes
Clerk
just-
was good.
You know when to shut up?
Commissioner, starting on my left, Commissioner Harris, anything?
No.
Commissioner Flagg?
No.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Earlier, I apologize, Mr. Harvey. Second, school opens tomorrow. Drivers be careful. Kids out there, bicycles, walking, intersections, be extra wary.
Commissioner Harvey?
I have nothing, sir. Thank you.
I have nothing. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day and safe